It is Modern Craftsman Monday. Without
Monday.
Monday, you guys, usually Nick's beautiful voice is
Yeah.
narrating the beginning part of this podcast, but Nick is in wonderful California right now. Sorry for blowing up your spot, Nick. He's taking a family vacation, doing a little work on the side while he's out there making some visits. So this one is John, myself, and Gene Brownhill from Sweeten. They are basically a company that looks to connect customers with contractors, and kind of be a liaison throughout that process. And they stay with the project, limited capacity, but they stay with the project through completion. To ensure that it's a successful project, or if it's not a successful project, as to why. They spend a ton of their money and time kind of integrating and implementing technology into the construction field, and data retrieval, kind of inventorying that data, organizing it, creating their spreadsheets so that they can create basically an algorithm to fit customers and leads with contractors. I know myself, I don't use programs like this, so I was fairly green going into this, and had to have her dumb it down for me to say, now what do these actually do? What are these about? Um, so it's, if nothing else, it's a good conversation to kind of hear her input, and how they're looking to use technology to really hone their skill set and their numbers, throughout the country. I think they have 10. They're in 10 major cities right now, so you can check them out. It was a cool conversation. Obviously, we missed Nick. I feel like Nick would have been head to head with her as far as going for it. Very low risk tolerance. Um, but it was cool. It's neat to see everyone has a different approach to the industry, and hers is really looking to bring technology into it, which I am so far from. That it's neat to hear.
That's really cool. It was a good combo. You guys will enjoy it.
Yeah. So have a listen. Let us know what you think. Hop on, leave us a review, and I guess we'll catch you guys next week. And as always, this podcast is brought to you by drumroll. Drumroll. We gotta
Duration
do.
molding and millwork.
Oh, radio voice, John. Duration, molding, and millwork. Duration would like to welcome 2 new stocking distribution facilities to their product in the New Jersey, New York region. U.S. Lumber, Branchburg, New Jersey, and U.S. Lumber, Warwick, New York, now have their inventory on the ground to better service lumber and building material dealers in those regions with next truck availability. Look for U.S. Lumber, Kingston, PA, to be coming online soon as well. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com and be sure to check them out on IG. We also have another sponsor coming on board, which is Reno Run. You can find them on Reno Run app on Instagram. They are in right now. They're in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, and Chicago. Basically, they will make a run to one of the big box stores, the supplier, to pick up materials that you need, so you don't have to send one of your employees, take a van off the road, take an employee off of a job, go do it yourself after work. I know a lot of times, at the end of the day, I want to get home to my wife, my kids, sometimes my kids. Um, and
Dogs.
yeah, like I just don't feel like making an extra stop or getting up early and going in the morning and dealing with that mess, where if I could just, shoot a text or get on
Well,
an app
well,
and ask somebody
it,
to pick something up for me, I would kind of love
like,
that.
you might stop on the way home for a box of screws, but if it's like 7 2x12s,
Yeah.
you're like, you know what? How can I get someone to do this? And small companies and even big ones, they don't want that to be happening within their company. So
Yeah.
this gives you an option of making that call, the text, or jumping on the app and it being there the next morning or even
Yo,
that afternoon.
maybe they could run out and pick up Boral for you. Some
Yeah,
duration products,
yeah,
you know?
probably could.
Be like, I need some shiplap. Go grab some
Dutch lap.
Dutch lap. Um, no, it's a good idea. I think that I have kept employees on board because they live
as a runner.
yeah, like,
Runners
basically
exist.
yeah, it's like, I know that at the end of every day, I can send you on your way home to pick up stuff for the next day, and that may be worth the salary that I pay you on a daily basis, so that would save me a lot of money a year, but, check them out, see if it's a good fit for you, and, enjoy the podcast. Where are you guys located?
So we are, before the pandemic, we had a headquarters in New York City, but now we've transitioned like so many people to remote first. So we've got folks everywhere and we serve the top 10 cities in the US. So,
Okay. And what's the just for anyone who doesn't know, kind of what's the structure of your business? What do you guys do?
yeah, so we are, a two-sided marketplace that helps connect homeowners and small businesses with renovation projects to the right construction professionals for those projects. That's what it technically does. I come from the industry, and so I our customer has always been the general contractor. My background is architecture, and I really understood just how like an impossibly hard job it is to be a general contractor. And so those are our customers. We're really working to get them projects. Um, but obviously we've got to get the projects and attract both sides of the market to do that.
So you basically found that there was you were having a difficult time kind of connecting customers to contractors, so you're looking to be the liaison between the two?
Yeah. So I'll give you, um, a little bit of background, and I'm not sure if this is like just background for you or if we're just going
No,
Go to town.
anything's fine.
Tell your story.
So I had been working as an architect for many years, and I had been doing really high-end houses in the Hamptons, mostly in apartments in New York City. I went to Cooper Union here in New York City, so I was mostly centered here. And I bought a house in Brooklyn, in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and I was super excited to renovate it. Right, architect, first project. This is going to be awesome. It was a total nightmare.
Let me
I
guess, the
hired the
contractor's
wrong
fault?
I just hired the wrong general contractor. I actually always blame it on myself because I knew better. I knew not to take the lowest bid. I knew not to take the guy who like, oh, well, I mostly do commercial, but like this will be my first residential project. Like I knew from my professional experience to not do that. And yet when it came to my own dollars, I was like, well, I'm an architect. I'll be able to like, I'll do the punch list. I'll do everything. I'll do all the site supervision.
I'll
Like
call in
I'll
all
be
my
on it.
favors.
Yeah, I'll call in all my favors. And yeah, that didn't work out well. That didn't work out well. I had a classic nightmare renovation story, way over budget, way over time. Um, and I just thought, I know that there are great general contractors out there, and I know that I had a real project. I had a $150,000 budget, like it was a real project, but I couldn't find the right firm to do that project, right? Because my even being in industry, like I had a Rolodex, but most of that Rolodex honestly didn't even want to come to Brooklyn, to be perfectly honest at the time. But yeah, I thought if I'm having this amount of trouble and I'm in the industry, what must it be like for homeowners who are not in the industry? And then how much does it suck for this general contractor, right? Because here he was trying to expand his business into a new category. He was obviously trying to make a profit and he was trying to get a recommendation and hopefully some photos for his portfolio. None of those things he got, right? And so that didn't help his business at all either. And so yeah, classic entrepreneurial moment. I was like, there's got to be a better way. And I knew that technology could help to solve that. Like, there are great firms out there, there are great projects out there. It's just about connecting them.
And what year was this?
So I started the company in 2011, but it was a one woman band for a minute there,
Yeah.
and I was able to get it in 2013 to be able to scale large enough that I was able to attract some venture capital, get a full team in place, and we've been running on all cylinders since then.
So what is the actual format of your business, or what did it look like at that point? Like, how did you even go about that? Kind of
Well, yeah.
connecting it, I mean, to have that idea is one thing, and then it's like, all right, what's my first step
Yeah.
forward?
First step, cash in 401k. Um,
Yeah.
unfortunately, a true story. Um, I put up a billboard website. Essentially, it was a form and it said, homeowners, if you have a renovation project, I will, match you to the right general contractor for your project, and I will track that project all the way to completion to make sure that you're happy. Same value prop as we have now. So for every single project that's awarded on the Sweeten platform, we offer an additional $50,000 of loss protection for the homeowners, and we follow the project all the way to completion. So same value prop, except it was just me in the very, very beginning behind this billboard website. So it would send an email to me, and then everything else after that would be emails and massive, massive, massive spreadsheets, because I had so many jobs going all at once and so many people, doing site visits on different jobs and doing estimates on different jobs and winning different projects. And I had to follow up on all of them. And it was just like extremely complicated Excel document, um, which of course I only had to use because I didn't have money to hire expensive engineers to be able to build me a system to be able to do all this. And most of the sales software, like the third-party sales software that I looked at, it was all for one salesperson, right? But for every single project, we're sending at least 3 general contractors, right? So we've got all different GCs working on all different projects at all different stages.
So how, I mean, to put it bluntly, how did you think that you were going to get this off the ground, considering you had just recently flopped so miserably? It's like all of a
Fair
sudden, well,
question.
I had my hands full with one, now I'm gonna do it for customers with
Yeah.
however many projects at once.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, you know, I've always been a systems thinker. And so when I come across a problem, I always try to think of like a way in which to put it into some kind of framework just so that I can understand what's going on. And what became really clear to me is that the industry didn't have good segmentation of general contractors, either skill set or customer service level. And so by layering that on, by understanding like, oh, there's all these different tiers of general contractors and they do all these different types of work and they provide all these different types of customer service. Once you lay that, and now a lot of people have done that, but at the time it really wasn't something that people were thinking about. So once you lay that on the firms, as far as like understanding where they are in the hierarchy, then it becomes a lot easier to match them, right? Because then you can take the projects, you can understand, their scope and budget, their cost per square foot, their timeline, their finish level, the type of renovation it is, all these things, and then you can like accurately match them to the right firms. And so that was like the breakthrough that I had that made me think that I could do it. Now, I still think your question's valid because any entrepreneur is like slightly crazy. Because it still sounds like an impossible task, but that was
Yeah.
the reasoning.
Um, and then I guess I don't know. I feel like there's so many questions with this. But looking to get this business off the ground, what was kind of did you have an end goal in mind? I want to be here at this point. I want to be in this many cities. Or were you looking just like, hey, I want to start small and then kind of organically grow this? Obviously, if you got venture capitalists moving in fairly early on, you were probably hit the ground running there.
Yeah, hit the ground running. We knew that this was a problem everywhere, right? So general contractors are incredible at their craft and being in the field, but you talk to any GC or any construction professional, like the paperwork, the customer service, the sales, the marketing, they just don't like that part of the job. The vast majority, some of them do, but the vast majority that we've talked to. And so, we didn't have to be experts in like local building codes or permits or any of that stuff. Like they have that covered. What they needed help with was this higher level general stuff around the areas I said. And so it was clear that, you know, every GC in the United States. And we in early days, we actually had someone from Japan come and ask us if they could franchise it. So I guess it's a problem in Japan too.
Yeah. So, are these contractors who are working kind of underneath this umbrella only working for you, or are they landing their own jobs as well?
Oh no, they absolutely have their own jobs, and our measure of success is how much we are able to grow their business within the Sweeten platform. So, we want to be seeing like 50% year over year growth. Like you start with us with, $100,000 or $200,000 of projects, and we want to get you to 5, and then 1 million, and then 3 million, and then, sky's the limit. But of course, they're taking other projects as well, as we help them to scale.
And then even as far as the growth, right? Because I'm a big advocate for growth, not necessarily being by numbers. And I think that our industry, it's tough. Everything is it's very numbers driven. It's about how much sales you have, how much money you're spending. Are you I guess, is there any way for you guys to kind of be involved to ensure that that growth is not just a financial growth and that the company's structured to be able to handle the capacity that you're now feeding them?
It's a great question. And you clearly know your shit because you know that companies explode themselves when they just try to go for growth,
Yeah.
right? Like it's a lesson that we learned really early. Um, and so now we have a monthly strategic business call. Um, every general contractor has one with their account manager. So for once a month, we're on the phone talking to you, and we're talking to you about exactly that. Like, what's going on in your business? Did you get another project manager? Like, do you guys have more capacity now? Have you figured out the issue that you had with that one site super? Like, we keep getting a bunch of complaints with them. Like, we are actively partnering with them and sharing best practices that we've seen really work as far as either organizational structures or ways that people have scaled. Other firms in our platform that are, a little bit more further ahead. Because yeah, a lot of times, the chaos can ensue very quickly if you don't have the organizational structure around that growth.
Yeah, and I think that I think that within most smaller, especially residential companies don't have the infrastructure to grow as a business. And, it ends up, well, they land more jobs, they hire more people, they just put people in place and they never actually sort out the business end of things. And then it just becomes more chaotic. And I feel like the quality goes down. Although it may appear that they're making more money because they have a higher sales volume, they're not actually being as profitable as they can be.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we, we used to have, when we used to be able to be in person, all of our events were focused on our general contractors. Again, those are our customers, and those are the folks that we have repeat business with, long-term relationships. We've got firms that have been with us from the very beginning. So that's almost 10 years of like real long-term partnership. Anyway, I bring it up because, we'd have a Christmas party every year, and we'd have 150, 200 general contractors come. And inevitably, you could always tell the guys who were like a little bit struggling. I would send the account managers over and be like, you're coming straight from a job site. You look so tired. Like, this is the Christmas party. Like, if you couldn't get it together to come to the Christmas party, how are we doing?
Yeah. Um, and what are you guys doing? Obviously, it's your business at the end of the day and your brand on that. What sort of screening do you guys do for people who want to work with you?
Yeah, so we require, obviously, we work with only licensed general contractors. You have to prove your license and insurance. We then have a 30-minute phone screen where we just ask you about some past experiences, do a little bit of scenario testing, just to make sure that you understand that, you are in the construction business, but also in the customer service business. And then lastly, you have to be willing to work transparently. That means that, you have a profile on our site where we have all your projects, reviews, and every time that we put that profile in front of a homeowner, we're monitoring it to see what's your response time, how quick are you getting the site visits, where are your estimates coming in, where is your price related to your competition. We share all this information back with our GCs on their insights dashboard. We share how responsive they are compared to their peers. We share their pricing compared to their peers on specific projects after the bidding is done, because we do really maintain a competitive bid process. But yeah, we do everything we can to really make sure that we have selected firms that are ambitious, that want to grow, and are willing to work transparently to do it.
So I could name a lot of people who kind of passed the test with the license, the insurance, and the half-hour phone screening. But what do you guys do to be able to protect yourself? For me, it's like I guess I think of it from I'm a smaller company, right? But like my brand, my everything revolves around the integrity of my company. You know, that the word of mouth that goes around. And even if I bring a sub on, it's like I need to interview that sub in person. I need to be able to walk their job, see their work before I put my name on it, because at the end of the job, they're underneath me and I'm kind of liable for them. So I do everything that I can to protect myself. How are you guys able to protect yourselves? You know, based I mean the screening process is not that difficult, right? You know, if you should be licensed, you should be insured, and
Yeah.
you're going to hop on a phone call. But I think that there's a lot of contractors who could kind of slip through the cracks that aren't necessarily somebody you'd want to be working with.
Yeah. There's 7 steps. I've only shared 3 of them. There's 4 more, including checking past references. We do like a online screen. We do building department checks. Like we do a bunch of other technical stuff as well behind the scenes to make sure
Yeah.
that this is someone that we want to do business with. And you know, the power of technology and what works so well, and we learn this over time, is of course we want to screen and vet the contractors, as you're saying, but did we let in some jerks along the way? Yes, we have. And the way that we have mitigated against that is just to be able, again, that response time and the ways in which you respond is really important, because it goes directly back into our matching algorithm. So for example, if you're new to our platform, we give you 15 awesome projects and you barely respond and you go to 2 site visits and you win one of those projects, you're going to be deprioritized in the matching algorithm. You're going to see less deal flow from us, because we don't want, for all the reasons that you're saying, like we're not sure that you're engaged in a way that we feel comfortable with.
So most of this matching is through an algorithm based on like all of your past jobs and data and information. That's
Ex-
insane.
Exactly.
Um, I don't,
Exactly.
so it's tough for me. I mean, obviously there's a lot of businesses out there that have been successful doing this. I look at my projects and, you know, this is bringing you in would be bringing in another party kind of to introduce contractors, customers, all of that stuff. I
Yep.
just look at the scale that I do things, and I'm looking for that personal connection with my customers, because I know that I'm going to be there for however many months, and that
Totally.
obviously we need to be able to hit that budget, right? Like I want to be doing certain aesthetics as far as jobs go. There's a level of finish that I want to get to, but then I also I want to be able to kind of work with my customers and have a relationship with my customers, and I feel that that's really difficult to do through an algorithm. Um,
I totally agree with you. However, lots of people have gotten married by finding their person
I knew
online.
Match.com was going to come up.
Like, I totally get
Skeptic.
it, but it works, right? So we have so much data around different archetypes of projects, different archetypes of GCs, that we're able, and I hear what you're saying, the personal connection, but we facilitate that through immediately getting you on the phone with them as quickly as possible. You do an in-person site visit for every single project. You go, you walk the house with them, you walk the job with them. Our average order value is $85,000. So these are major renovations. People are not going into these things lightly. They also want to know you and have a very personal connection. Sometimes we don't get it right from a personality standpoint. I feel confident in our algorithm that we always get it right from a technical standpoint. But sometimes people, it's like I often ask renovators, like, okay, well, did you have a wedding planner, or have you planned any big events, and did you use a planner for those? And what type of partner did you like in that situation where it was a high dollar value ticket, and obviously emotionally stressful if it was an event or your wedding. And some people want somebody who's super creative and is going to like work with them on the design and talk to them about details and be super thoughtful and like really like a craftsman in the project and be a co-collaborator in the design. And then other people are like, no, I do not want that. I want somebody who is super buttoned up on paperwork. I want someone who is documenting this project really, really clearly. I want really clear communication expectations, and I want them to meet them. Like those types of personality differences we learn over time. Um, if we make matches and the homeowner comes back to us and says, no, we don't like any of those matches, we'll go at it again. And that time, a human being will jump on what we call a pre-qualification call and ask you some more questions so that we can then do it by hand to make sure that we get it right.
So how are you guys sourcing these leads at this point? Is it through other websites, just through your own, through the contractors themselves?
Yeah, contractors have been a great source of deal flow for us because, this, it's such a word of mouth business, and they get a lot of projects that they don't want, that aren't good for their firm. So definitely they send those back. But because, again, the value prop is that we stay with the project until it's complete. And so by doing that, we get a bunch of data, both qualitative and quantitative, about the project. So like a bunch of data about pricing or permit times or how long these projects take. And we make pricing guides and process guides and a bunch of content around that. But then we have all the stories, right? Every homeowner or small business owner who posts a project on our site, they're putting up before pictures. They're putting up inspiration pictures. We then interview them at the end for, not all, but for some projects, from some select projects, we interview them at the end of the project so that we have like a full story with beautiful photos and compelling homeowners is all on our blog. And so to answer your question, most people find us through our content, more than 70%.
So social media, blog, website, all of that stuff.
All of it, but it's all the same content, which is that raw, is the content from the actual renovation stories.
Yeah. So I'll be completely honest. I don't know how a lot of like the companies like you work. I don't do a large volume of work, so I've never looked elsewhere other than like my work and marketing myself to look for job leads. So I know Howells does something where they're connecting contractors to customers, and Angie's List is something, and I don't know, honestly, I don't know anything about them, but are you guys like, is there a way that you differentiate yourself from those other people, and how so?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest differentiation is, and it's a fundamental one, is in our business model. So we get paid on a success fee for projects that are booked on our platform. The other Angie's List and House and everybody else in the industry does it either on advertising dollars or cost per lead. So we've had a lot of people come to our site. Honestly, a lot of people, meaning the general contractors, come to our site. They don't believe it. They're like, this is too good to be true. You're giving me all these leads and I only pay you when I win, right? Like that's a completely different model, a completely different frame. We ask a lot for that, meaning we charge, a percentage of the total project, but we also just ask that you be partners along the way so that we can get you winning, so that we can trust one another. So win-win business model is the key differentiator. It reorients all of our thinking, right? Because yeah, I could get you a bunch of leads. Who cares if they're all garbage?
Yeah. So who is controlling?
That's usually the other sites. I may have dabbled early on with other companies in these sites, and it's not, like, to Tyler's point, I feel like the questionnaire needs to be like 100 questions long to really fit a contractor with a project, and no one does that. It's all about speed and numbers.
We do.
Yeah, but that's my point, is that's what's different is, I mean, I really love the fact that you guys you're committed to the project, not the lead. That's the big difference, and that's what everyone needs. I love this whole scenario and that's tough coming from me, because most of these dating sites for contractors, as I put it, would be something I'd never go near. But
Yeah.
like, this is something like, whenever we meet somebody that maybe doesn't have the right budget or the right expectations or details, and it's not right for us, I always feel bad walking away going, God, I'm leaving them to the wolves. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like, to Tyler's point, someone's going to come in here and rock their world with promises, and they won't realize it until they're 6 months in on a 4-month project.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And for us, so you asked about the matching algorithm as it relates to matching it to the contractor, but we have another algorithm that scans every project, and 30% of the projects that try to get posted on our site fail our pre-qualification process on the project side. So we screen both sides, not just the general contractors. We screen the projects as well, because the very last thing that we want to do is waste any of our companies, any of our firms, any of the general contractors, any of their time. Like, our business model doesn't allow for it. like those garbage leads, they clog up our system, they clog up your system. They don't help anybody.
I feel
So
like that's every company. If you can, maintain a clean, steady production line, then everyone wins. It's the same as us
Totally.
running a job. It's, if I don't make it production oriented for like a trim carpenter, if I get him there just because I want to get him there and there's no trim, dude,
Exactly.
I'm never going to see him again,
Exactly.
or B, it's just like, you're wasting my time and it cost me 2 mobilizations. So it is tough, but that is the essence of every project, I think.
so when you guys connect a homeowner to a contractor, can you walk me through kind of what that process? I feel like I just have way too many questions as to how this
Sure.
works, and my brain goes 100 miles an hour. But like, even as far as, say you connect a customer to 3 contractors, is that at that point the customer's choice to kind of figure out where they stand with numbers and who they pick, and it's not necessarily the middle number, especially even considering, you're taking a percentage of this cost now? What's to stop a contractor from just being like, well, this job's this much amount more because I want to make the same amount that I typically make on a build like this? Can you just kind of walk me through what this whole process would look like if I were a homeowner, and you gave me like 3 contractors to kind of start this process with?
Sure. So a homeowner, as I said, typically starts, you've read a blog post, you're super excited, you're like, okay, great, Sweeten's going to help me post your project. You hit post, and if you've passed the pre-qualification algorithm, you will immediately see another screen that says, we have 5 matches for you, but if you would like, you can select the top 3 and we'll just automatically connect you to the top 3, or you can select your own 3. So they have a choice. They can go with our top recommendations, or they can look at 5 options we gave them and choose 3.
Okay.
So once they do that, they'll then be able to, so depending upon which path they take, let's for this example say that they decide, no, I want to choose my own. So they go, they see 5 results, they can go through, look at their profiles. It's just like any other, if you think of any other online marketplace. So it's a profile with like a bunch of photos, a bunch of reviews, the license information, the insurance information, some stats that we've gathered about them, whether or not they're in our All-Stars program or not. Every piece of information that hopefully a homeowner needs to be able to make a decision about whether they want to work with that firm or not. So then you've got 3. So you choose 3 of those 5 as a homeowner. And the next thing that happens, and this is also really different, is we go and ask the general contractor if they are interested in this project, if they are interested and available. So just because the homeowner says, yes, they want to work with this firm and Sweeten thinks that it's a good firm, we always verify it with the general contractor. So we need that double confirmation. It's just like on, swipe left or whatever the thing is. Like, you both got to say yes. So you both say yes, and then we immediately share phone numbers, contact information. The GC will call you. And from a homeowner experience standpoint, it's such a better experience, because I don't know if you know like how it works on other sites, but like, you post your project and all of a sudden your phone is ringing off the hook with people that you don't know who they are. And it's like, why are you, like, I don't know who you are. Why are you calling me? right? This is really clear. This firm is going to be calling you. You call, set up a site visit, have a site visit. All this happens either on our communication, on our instant messaging inside the app. All of our GCs have a mobile app that they're doing this through. So you set up a site visit, you go and do the site visit, you get a better understanding of the project, you do, obviously, an itemized estimate needs to be created, all of that time. So it's usually, we like to get within 2 weeks, ideally, all 3 of the estimates in. Now, sometimes, we have really big projects. It's not possible. There's an architect, there's, whatever, but for your standard kitchen and bathroom, that's what we would try to shoot for. And then once you have all 3 of the estimates uploaded to the portal as a homeowner, you can schedule a bid leveling call. A bid leveling call happens with a Sweeten employee who is trained, who's done, probably, I don't know, each individual one, definitely has done hundreds. I'm not sure thousands quite yet. They've done hundreds of renovations. They've worked with these firms in depth. They can share with you information about the firm, about past reviews, about projects that we've done with them. And they can also just help you to level those bids and to answer any additional questions that you have as you compare them. We definitely do not, limit that bid leveling call to just Sweeten general contractors. So homeowners will upload estimates that they got from GCs that were not on Sweeten's platform, and we'll help level those too. And so it really is just trying to get, like you said, the homeowner to have a really informed decision. We obviously are going to try to push for our guys and girls as much as possible. But people make these decisions in a vacuum, and they need a lot more support doing it. And so then you decide you're going to work with, Tyler's construction company. Great. Tyler, you award the contract. We will then move that project into what we call post-award support. And that's a whole different support team that will then monitor that project all the way to completion. So your account manager will be monitoring it, but also a client services person will be monitoring it. We'll check in at the beginning, middle, and end because we have the estimate. You've told us, how long you think the project's going to be. So we know exactly beginning, middle, and end. And we'll just make sure that the homeowner is remaining happy the whole time. And so as a homeowner, you'll get email check-ins, you can have phone check-ins, whatever you'd like, as you are working through if any challenges arise with your contractor. I will say that we put this post-award support as a value to homeowners. GCs love it as much as the homeowners because they use it when a homeowner is being unrealistic or, just has unrealistic expectations. They'll say, hey, can you reach out to this homeowner and share some content or share as a neutral third party and just tell them that I'm not trying to play games with them. This is how long it takes to do a permit in this county. This is just what it takes, but they won't believe me. Can you help? And so we're happy to jump in and do stuff like that as long as our client services and account management team talks about it as the path to completion. We just need to keep both parties on the path to completion.
I like that.
So how are you limiting that contact from those customers too? Because you guys have to make a profit on this. Ideally, you're not spending hours and hours and hours of every single job, putting out fires with customers or dealing, as the first point of contact is the customer to the contractor, right? And then it's pulling you guys in if and when necessary.
Correct. Again, our screening works well, our matching works well. We have low single-digit projects that need high-touch customer support when they're in construction. Low single digits. That's pretty good. We've got thousands of projects. And I think a lot of that is the expectation setting that we do up front with the homeowner, right? So when they post their project, when they're doing that bid leveling call, when they award their project, constantly trying to set expectations, realistic expectations, because that's the other thing that we found. GCs often will, Johnny, when you said throw them to the wolves, it really is true. GCs will just promise the world, some of them, and it's just not possible. Like what they're saying is not possible. And some of them do it because they just want the job and they think that they can like make it up in change orders, or some of them know that they're not going to finish it. These are not firms that are part of the Sweeten network. But that like mentality sometimes gets into like even a good GC's head, where they'll shave off some time or shave off some dollars where they really can't. And we just try to act as a backstop to be like, it's more important that you get this, like that they're realistic now. Like, wouldn't you rather them be honest about how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take now, than as opposed to like say that they can do something impossible and then not achieve it? That's going to be way more disappointing.
It's very true. Tyler, I don't think this is that far-fetched, but for having one product that didn't go so hot, everything that you're describing is more of, things that you wish you had been told or someone was looking out for. And that's what you've created for the marketplace. I don't just say one side of the marketplace, it's for both. You're helping streamline expectations and deliverables for the GC, and that's probably the only thing most clients want. Obviously, they want execution. That's a gimme when I say this. But it's all those little things, those idiosyncrasies, answering the phone, going through it and just kind of feeling people out. Like I had a talk with a client yesterday, and I was going over a Chevron, and I just said, I know we went over this. I have Sharpie on the floor from the time we had our meeting, but not to say that I'm second guessing the situation, but I'm like, we should probably just review the positioning of the Chevron in the room, and I'm going to lay it out for you. And she's like, no, I want this. And I'm like, I think we should just look at it tonight. As a group, make sure that we're on the same page, because someone's got to be looking out for, once it starts getting installed, like looking out for the sub. The sub starts setting, it's glued, and then they go, hold up, stop. This isn't what I wanted. And it's like, well, no, it was. So I'm just trying to reinforce that we are all on the same page, that this decision that you made a week ago or whatever, before we actually had the Chevron pieces cut, we just laid down some flooring, that just to confirm it all, because it's worth it for my end to do the extra half-hour walkthrough. And they did. They reviewed it all, and we had a couple little areas where, the border, how it goes around bookcases, and they dialed it all in. Now I know I can turn my floor guy loose in that room, and I don't have to worry about this seeing reality. I'm trying to bring it as close to reality before it goes in, so that way everyone has it. But I love that. I don't know if I would. I went on the website. I put in a job. I checked it out.
Did you get matches, or did you get bumped?
I got 2 matches. Yeah, I got 2 matches. Great. It was cool. It's but I think to Tyler's point, and the way that we like to navigate is like, even I used to love social media and getting leads through social media because people knew us. Now there's just fake clients hitting you up because they saw you and they probably saw 2 pictures and they're like, love your stuff. Can we work together? It's like, you love my stuff or you love me? Like, I want you to love me. I want you to have read through a number of posts to know that I'm slightly psychotic. And that maybe like that it has to be the right fit, and not that I can just produce that mudroom for you.
Totally.
And it's weird. Like, once you, again, probably 10 years ago, I would probably, when one of my companies I was with dabbled in Angie's List, and you're getting all these leads, and it feels exciting. It feels like I'm successful because I'm getting all these calls. And the problem is I'm burning time on, when you said saving time, that was the crucial part, is that, we talked to a lot of GCs on our calls, mentoring calls, and it's like, so many of them are busy, but are they productive, and are they making money?
That's right. It's the first thing that we ask when people, sometimes we'll get GCs that are like, oh, that would be never for me. I'm super busy. It's like, okay, great. Are you busy with the right work? Are you busy with like profitable work? Are you busy with work that's all in the same geo? Like, you can get more thoughtful and creative about like what busy means.
Anyone can be busy. The worst contractor and the worst person in this world can be busy. Just trying to find the right stuff. And I think that's cool, is that you've gone into it with that. Honestly, it's like, I always relate everything to relationships, but like getting burned or someone breaking up with you, you look at that whole process of dating in a different mindset. And that's what took you along this road, is that, maybe I took XYZ for granted. And I should have asked, or dug a little deeper, or didn't avoid that conversation. And then before you know it, I'm 2 years deep in a relationship that I shouldn't be in.
Totally.
And that's what contracting is. Depending on the size of the project, you could be a year in and go, oh my God, I'm dating the wrong person.
Yeah.
They're not the GC for me. And that's a nightmare.
And that's when so for the small percentage of projects we have to jump in, we just get everybody super focused on the fact that they want the same thing, and which is this project to end, right? So that's why we say the path to completion. Because I think that the other really strange concept that homeowners have is that GCs want the projects to go on forever. And I'm just like, how did that thinking get into the mind of homeowners? Because it doesn't make any business sense. Like, who wants these projects to go on forever? Nobody. Like, they're not getting paid more money. They're not, it just isn't like an ideal job is do great work, out.
But what's funny is when I was younger, when I had my first company, and we would leave, some days we'd leave at 2:00 or 3:00. And I remember that GC. And again, it was early on in my career. I was probably 5 or 6 years, maybe 7 years in. And I was just taking the lead from, my partner at the time, who was 40. It's like, well, we're going to wrap up. Okay, we're going to wrap up. And I remember my client, who was a friend of mine at the time, I played hockey with him. He's like, I remember this, I'll never forget this question. He's like, why not just stay later and get done earlier? Meaning that let's say there's 75 days in this project. Leaving at 2:00, just because it's 2:00 and it's nice out, why not just pull back on that 75 days? And I was like, I remember I didn't have the answer. I was like, I don't know. This is just what we do. And there's certain days we'll work till 10 at night. And then there's other days where it's like, let's just wrap a day of demo. We finished demo. And I look back now and I feel like it was more action oriented, meaning if I wrapped up demo, I'm wrapping up. If I killed yesterday and then we're done at 2, my body, everything deserves to get out of here.
Yeah.
But I was talking to a GC yesterday, and at a certain point, he'd been doing it for, I think, 12 years. And he's like, there's no incentive for me to go faster. And that really struck me as we all can be hungry and we all can be excited about what we do, but does it wear off for someone that's in the business for 15, 20 years?
I mean, I think I would probably ask that GC, what direction is he trying to grow his business? Is he trying to grow his business? Because it sounds like maybe he's not. And again, we're always looking, I always qualify by saying, if you're a small to medium size general contracting firm that is ambitious, please apply to Sweeten. Let's work together. So I would ask that GC, okay, well, do you want your business to grow? And then second, people want their businesses to grow in different ways. There are some people who love the volume play. They just want to make a machine, and they have a machine, and they just want every single cookie cutter kitchen and bathroom renovation, and they just want to grind. And they are highly incentivized to get projects done quickly, because instead of doing 35 projects this year, they can do 50. And we have firms that are doing 50 projects a year with us, just cranking them out. Then we have other firms that are no, I really want to lean into the craft and the skill, and I want to get higher dollar value, higher per square foot. I want projects where people want really high finishes. I don't care if they're big or small, but I really want to elevate that way. Then there's people who want to do just blowout, ridiculous, highest end of the market renovations in construction and in residential, and that's something different. But I think that, or they want to move into commercial work, public sector commercial work, which we also have had some folks want to do. But I think that each one of them requires a slightly different organizational system. It requires definitely a different mindset of the owner for each one of those, because for the craft, it's like the old saying, right? Good, cheap, fast, pick 2. It's kind of the same in your career trajectory, as far as the categories that you're going to cover. And so in good and fast, or good and cheap, if he's a good and cheap guy, what is he's got no motivation to move fast.
They're always the busiest.
Good and cheap.
I was, because I was good and I didn't know my value. So I was always busy, and I was like, people love me. And then it wasn't until I left my business and worked for somebody else, I've said the story 100 times, I did a remodel for, it was a knock down a garage, put up a new 2-car garage, master above, master bath, family room, tie in. I think I charged $270, and then I did the exact same job as a PM, and it was like $580. And I was like, that's why people love me. I was half the price. It wasn't because I was an unbelievable
cheap.
craftsman.
I meant like regular market cheap. That's
but no one told me. This is the problem. Like,
well,
this
but
is what
this
we
is
talk
the
about.
other
I have
thing
no
that
idea.
we do. So this is the other thing that we do, and it's a really big part of our business development, a really big part of those strategic business calls. On your dashboard, as a general contractor, any project that you have submitted an estimate for on our platform, after the bid has been awarded, we'll show you everybody's pricing. It's anonymized, but we'll show you. Right? Because cool. How does that benefit us? How does that benefit us if we burn you out? If you're a great GC and you're not charging enough, you need to know that. And I don't one of the things that's really frustrating to me about the way that technology people have thought about the industry, they think about it as we can commoditize the labor, right? We can just commoditize the labor and that'll just be a race to the bottom, right? A race to the bottom on skill, race to the bottom on price. People will not be able to actually make a living doing construction, which is an incredibly important profession. And so for us, that's why, there's so many things that are built into our business model that speak to this, but I see contracting as an incredible path for social mobility, right? Because you can go from just being a tradesman in the field, you can be a carpenter, a drywall guy, see the GC and be I think I could do that. And then, put in your time, study, but then to be able to be a small business owner, I just think there's not that many industries that you can do that. You can go from labor to ownership with a very, in some places, a very extenuous or involved exam, but some places not so much.
I think that timeline is getting shorter and shorter. When we talk about on this podcast, if Nick was here, by the way, you gave the 3 categories. Nick is all 3 of those. Machine, craft, and volume. It's just he's a different breed. But no, I think it's tough. That I think when I first started, the goal was I was 10 years. 10 years and I'll be able to become a GC. And now we talk to people that are I remember at BS a couple years ago, Tyler, kid comes up to me and goes, tell me about himself, blah, blah. He's a laborer. And he's I think I'm opening my own firm this summer.
Yeah.
And I was and I don't want to be Debbie Downer because that's how I sound on the podcast, but I'm really? Don't you think you should dabble in maybe go to the bookkeeping department and just shadow them for a day, or shadow the lead carpenter or someone else just to see more of it? Because I think when it's done right, we've all seen Tom Silver from This Old House. When it's done right, it looks very easy.
Yeah, everything.
But when Tommy goes down and cuts 6 pieces and they're all angled for a gable end and goes up and nails them all off one at a time, and you're oh, I could totally do that. Then you go try it and you have to cut it 27 times, run out of wood, go back to Home Depot, cut it wrong again, and then make another trip. And you go, that's reality. That's what our industry is. It is tougher. So I think there is a grain of salt that needs to be discussed when we talk about the timeline from, being introduced to the industry and then being a GC or someone that's the head of it. That timeline right now, I think it is a couple of years to a lot of people.
Well, again, we don't deal with the timeline of how long it took you to be a GC, but we do require that you're in business at least 6 months and that we can talk to 3 past clients or 3 past clients. Because the thing that we've run into more is that people will represent work that they did as a PM as work that they did as a GC. And being a PM is certainly a hard job, but it's not the job of the GC. You didn't sell the project. You didn't interface with the client in that specific way. So that's a little bit more of what we see sometimes.
It's funny. Everyone loves the PM, but the reality of it is when there's an issue, they go to the owner.
Totally. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
But PMs don't get that. PMs are like, no, I'm amazing. I'm the best, and it's like, well, that's not what I'm hearing, or
We
I'm
actually,
seeing, or
we actually, so the way our system works is we kind of gradually give you bigger projects over time, and you've got to do a special interview to get like design build work. Like we're, to Tyler's point, we're very sensitive about managing our brand, because every time we make a match, that's the Sweeten brand on the line. So we had this PM leave one of our firms. We've had a lot of propagation within our GC. So like we'll start working with one GC and then one of their PMs will leave, start a new company, come back to Sweeten. It's happened many, many times to us now. And this PM, who I will remain nameless, but anybody from Sweeten listening to this is going to be like, oh man, yeah, I know what you're talking about. This PM was going crazy on us. He's like, why am I not seeing projects like so-and-so used to get? You give me all these small projects. I deserve big projects. Like just freaking out. I did all those projects for him. Those are all my projects. You're sending me $50,000 projects. I want the $400,000 projects. We're like, you didn't sell any of those. You didn't interface with the client. And by the way, the way that you're talking to me and the staff is kind of showing that you're not great at customer service and you're not great at communication.
Yeah.
100%. It's that's what kind of blows my mind with all of this. It's the exposure that when you have your brand, right, and you're now essentially partnering with all of these people. My palms are sweating, like with the exposure that you're putting yourself, especially with contractors. I'm like, that's a lot of people that you're signing up with, where I'm like, I don't know, we need a few years together before I pull you on board with me.
I will tell you, so I've been doing this for a decade now. I've been doing this for 10 years. And in the beginning, probably like every entrepreneur, but for all the reasons that you're talking about, I was sweating it. Like really, really nervous. And every time I get nervous, we just build another protocol around it. We build another system around it. We build another way in which like something happens, somebody gets to the system that we don't like. We figure out a way to like, okay, great. How could we have solved this? How would we have known this guy is not going to do a great job? How do we know that this firm is not, up to our standards? So again, that's like all of the stuff that we're doing on the onboarding and the mobile app and all of the data tracking that we do, all of the monthly strategic business calls, like all of these things are outgrowths. Every time I had that feeling that you're having right now of like, oh my God, this is so scary. How am I going to be able to sleep at night? We just put a system around it.
So my question to you is, and I feel like this can be something for a GC. How did you know to stop what you were doing and then put resources to creating that kind of check and balance? I feel like this is a business owner in general question, is that most of us see it, triage it, move on, and then not so much say it's never going to happen again, but then their focus is drawn to something else. But there's never There's never this stop. Let me make sure I don't repeat this, put a protocol in place. The best people do. But how did you know to stop and put resources at this?
I mean, I think like most things, I can't think specifically like the moment where I was like, oh, I have to do this. But I was probably in some kind of pain. Like something had probably gone wrong. And I was like, fuck this cannot keep happening. Like, and so now, like every single time we have one of these moments, there's always a period afterwards where we debrief. And it's like, how could we have had this not happen? How can this, and like every single month our sales team does it. Every single month our account management team does it. We do retrospectives. We learned it from our tech and product team. We do retros every single month. We do retros after every single big project. We do retros over any, like if there's a major, new type of development or crisis.
How
we have a retro and the other thing I'll say is that the protocols, if people who are listening to this and thinking about ways in which they might be able to institute protocols to be able to mitigate some of the risks in their businesses, I would really talk to the people who are on your team about what those protocols would be. Like I would not propose them. I would ask them like, How do you make this not happen again? What do we need to do?
Yeah, because you're almost making them responsible for the solution, like long
Oh,
term.
always. I've found that that's the only way to get long-term adoption of these solutions is if they come from the team. If it all comes from top down, if it's all Gene's ideas, they do it because they have to, not because they actually think it's the solution. If they come up with a solution and we test it and it works, great, let's keep it. If they come up with a solution, we test it, it doesn't work, no problem, right? I say this constantly, but the only bad ideas is no ideas. That's it.
I'm
Everything
full
else,
of ideas.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
got
you just got
tons
to
of them.
test them, figure out how to test them quickly, and don't get to extend your analogy, don't get married to any idea
I said that today.
because most of them don't work.
Yeah, I
I've
told
had my
someone
heart
today.
broken so many times. I've had ideas I put so much money behind. I put so many resources. I'm like, this is going to be amazing. Nothing. Nothing. Didn't work. Then
So
some other
you get
little,
you
some
get
other,
frustrated with that. I'm the opposite. I've had all these amazing ideas, have had no money to put behind them, and they've gone nowhere. So I feel like I could have been an amazing success, but the problem is I didn't have any time or money to put behind it. So I
well,
would rather have not failures, but I think bringing more epiphanies to life. I feel like there is a ring of success around that, even though they may have not all landed.
I mean, I think so on the money and resources thing. So one, you know, I did not come from any money or any resources at all. Like, my mom is a waitress and my dad drives a taxi, like in New London, Connecticut, for anybody who knows where that is. So
I know
little,
what that is.
that'll give you.
Was it the house in Bed-Stuy that brought on the money? Is that it?
No, so I had worked as an architect and got a corporate job. I was working in corporate, and so that's where the original 401k came from. It was a modest 401k, to be clear. And what I'll say is though is that we all do have money and resources. Like, I know the ideas that I'm talking about did take a lot of money and a lot of resources at this scale now, but in the beginning, like, I use Google Forms. It's free. I use Google Sheets. It's free. I use Gmail, free. I had to pay to put a website up, but like, I just figured I've just always been super scrappy in that way where, like, I'm just going to figure it out for what I have.
Yeah, guerrilla marketing, etc.
Are
I mean,
you
Yeah, and that's where our content marketing came from. And content marketing is so strong from us now. I didn't have any money to market. So I was like, great. I I hired someone to go take some photos and and write the blog post, like, yeah. And
are you
then
guys
hustled my tush off to get those into like apartment therapy and Domino and Dwell and all these places.
are you guys handling anything with design when these customers come to you?
Yeah, so we have a small fleet of design only firms that we work with. It is not what we specialize in, but if somebody really needs that, we can help them. We then have a number of firms that we have deemed in our design build bucket. Now, during, you asked Johnny about the interview process. So one of the main areas that we really try to get an understanding of is, again, that business structure. And if you have design resources inside your general contracting firm, like what exactly that means. Like, can you actually design, or do you just have someone who can do architectural plans, or do you have someone who can do renderings? Like, what does that mean? Or do you have like an actual interior designer on staff? Or do you partner with an interior design firm that your husband or wife runs? So getting to really understand, because there's such a spectrum of services offered by general contracting firms.
Yeah, I think of, I guess the way where my head's going is, even when you have these customers and they come to you and they want a kitchen or they want a bathroom or they want a small addition, and they haven't done, they're not that far into the process where they have plans done, and then you're looking to go to contractors to get them pricing. And I know you said that you have a call where they'll get on the phone or get on an interview with somebody and kind of walk through those estimates and see, we've worked with this contractor before. This is what you're going to get here. But really, how are you ensuring that all of that is apples to apples if there's not really a design in place at that point for these customers?
Yeah, so it is the number one challenging thing about this segment, right? Because if you go up, if you're doing a multi-million dollar renovation, you're typically working with an architect, possibly an interior designer, home owner's rep. Like there's a whole bunch of people. For the segment of work that we do, only 10% of the projects that come to us have plans, like finished construction documents ready to go. And the rest of them are a homeowner with a verbal scope of work and some Pinterest pictures.
Yeah, because I would imagine most people who already have the architectural process started or completed are turning to their architect engineer to kind of refer contractors to them, which would, at that point, they're not going to bring you on board. I just think the hardest thing for me and what I'm looking to do is that's one of the reasons why I don't really competitively bid projects, because if there's no design in place, or even if there is a design in place, the way that I do things are going to be completely different than the way that other people do things. And especially if you're now going off a verbal scope of work where it's like, I could lose every single job if it's just based on a verbal scope of work because my head's going to dig 10 times deeper than other people are going to do.
So obviously we get an itemized estimate for every project. We get 3 of them. And in that call, that's what we're reviewing. We're reviewing to make sure that the scope of work is the same scope of work in each one of those estimates. That's exactly what we're doing. And I just want to clarify, we have lots of firms who have design services. The thing that we need to do from Sweeten side is we just need to set the expectation with the homeowner that that is a separate and distinct service outside of the general contracting of like building it. Because I think that oftentimes homeowners will come to us and they'll be like, oh, I have a Pinterest board and I picked out a faucet and I know the tub I want. And they think that that's like, it's designed, the bathroom is designed. They don't have anything else to do. And you're like, well, no, there's a whole bunch more work that needs to happen. And we need to make sure that it's one, like clearly articulated and someone's being compensated for that work so that it gets done. Because again, you're talking about like early on, our post-award support was all about like, well, he didn't help me. I wanted him to come to the tile store for the 3rd time and he didn't want to do it. And I got mad. What the homeowner didn't realize is like, no, he was doing that as a courtesy.
Yeah. I think that's kind of big. One of the biggest struggles within our industry is that it's typically not a formal process. And if you get a bad contractor or you get somebody who's more concerned with the bottom line and there's no design in place, they're going to make a lot of decisions based on how long this is going to take them, the profit margin on the job, and not necessarily from a design standpoint what's best. And I think that's it's everything with, to me, everything with success is kind of managing those expectations and then fulfilling those expectations. And I think with contractors, if it's just all verbal, it's really hard to kind of navigate that path with customers, because what's in a customer's head may be completely different than what's in contractor A's head versus contractor B's head, and then C's on a completely different wavelength. And that it's really hard to kind of manage all that while doing the work and ensuring that everyone's happy.
Yeah. Well, just to clarify, the scope of work gets written down, obviously, because each of the GCs write it down. So it's only verbal when the homeowner, and they do have to post a significant amount of information when they post their project with us. But as you know, sometimes projects can change midstream. They can decide that they don't want to do a powder room or they do want to do a powder room or whatever. But that's really why we look at those written estimates from the GCs so carefully to make sure that the homeowner is has communicated the same scope of work to all of them, and that's what that pricing represents.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know, there's obviously a lot that goes into every single job, no matter how big or how small it is, and kind of managing all of that along with the work is critical in order, to have that successful experience with the customers. Um,
Totally. And I'm excited. I think that there's a lot that technology can do to help both sides with the estimate process. We're working on some stuff. Maybe when it's done, I'll come and show it to you guys, see what you guys think. Because we've got thousands and thousands and thousands of estimates at this point, and so we've learned a lot.
So much data.
So much data. So much data. So really trying to use that data in a thoughtful way to, again, save everybody time. Save everybody time getting on the same page.
so you said that you're in 10 major cities throughout the country right now. And how many people are with the company?
So Sweeten,
I would say too many, if you ask me. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Too many people are with Sweeten or within the
No,
network?
am I like, if that question was asked to me, I'd be like, too many. How many
Oh
people?
no,
Yeah.
we don't have too many. No, we don't have too many. We've got people all over the country at this point. Again, as I said, we're now remote first. We've been as large as 80 people, and I think that is about the right size for where we are right now. We're a little bit less than that right this second.
And do you hope to continue to grow, or are you finding a sweet spot for the amount of work that you can do? Or is this, let's keep moving forward?
Always growing. Always, always, always growing. I'm a big gardener, and to me, it's like you're growing or you're dying. Those are like the options.
So the biggest thing with me with growth is ensuring that you're still getting, the it's not necessarily about that quantity of output as much as the quality of output there. So how do you anticipate growing and scaling the business while maintaining, what you kind of stand behind as a product and as a service to your customers?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the structure of our organization, we've built it in a way that it really can be like a fractal where, those fractal paintings where it's like the picture is a big wave, but then if you like get closer to it, it's like a bunch of little waves, and then you get closer to it, and every single one is like a little wave, which is the same picture as the big picture. That's kind of how our company is, the organizational structure of our company is, right? And so a general contractor is going to get a call with their account manager on a monthly basis. That's just going to happen, right? And the way that we do that is by limiting the amount of accounts that a account manager has. Same thing with client services, limiting the amount of people that they have on their plate. And so you can just build in thoughtful design into your organization, and it'll allow for every single interaction to be the same quality as the first one. I think, Johnny, when you said like it's a production line, like that's really what we've built. We've built a machine.
So, question, you said if you're not growing, you're dying. When you started Sweeten, you started it to solve something, and it wasn't about growth, right? It was more, there was a purpose behind what you were doing because you saw that you didn't want to, you wanted, I'm going to put words in your mouth, but you wanted to save someone else from the situation that you had kind of gone through. So growth really, correct me if I'm wrong, it was more of creating an idea, seeing if that idea takes hold, and if that idea will be successful. When did it switch for you then to be growing or dying?
So I would maybe question the question a little bit.
Why?
Because to me, the act of personal growth that it took to become an entrepreneur is the type of growth that I'm talking about. So like I am a lifelong learner. I'm a crazy curious person. I want to understand like everything around me and how the world works. And, and so that's the type of growth. I think you might be thinking that I mean just like, oh, I need my top line revenue to grow, which of course, that's how you measure business value. You need that to grow.
I think it's great to have a better understanding of what we all mean by growth. If it's more employees, if it is top line revenue, how do we measure success? I think that's what I was getting at with the question. I think Tyler, the same thing.
Totally. No, and I think it's a form of maybe like self-awareness or self-reflection or something to be able to even ask yourself that question, like, what do you want from your life? And then to go do it and to have the agency to like do it.
Yeah, it's very true. I think I look at it like I want to be growing because I want to be growing. I think probably not the word I want to be using. I just want to be learning. I never want to stop learning. And where that avenue takes me, I don't care where it goes. If it means I need 2 more employees, like I feel like what I'm hearing and what I'm jealous of is that like I would absolutely figure out my finances and hire 2 more employees if it gave me the ability to create 10 more epiphanies and see if they fly. And I think that's growth. It doesn't mean I have to then, I'm not trying to make that idea happen to be the next Sweeten. I'm trying to see if it's going to happen, if something that I thought about, like I think, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, is that, and this is even listeners, is that like when you walk up to the convenience store and you see that Mega Millions for like 409 million, you're not saying that you stop and look at that and go, sometimes I go, I'll take the 501. I'll take the 1. But like at the other end of it is like, what would I create if I had 501 million? And I think that's what you're doing in a way, is that you're creating enough revenue and enough, space that when you hire someone, they're giving you enough free space to kind of work with an epiphany, and you're not always triaging it. I guess that's what I was trying to figure out is like, when did you figure out with Sweeten that, obviously you had to get a good core group of contractors and open it up to potential clients. And the ideas were more of like reactionary. Again, I'm thinking outside the line, is that it's like, all right, how do I solve this? How do I then make this happen for that client so that this doesn't happen? And then at a certain point, I just feel like I wish people could look back in hindsight and go, all right, I had 10 employees. Things were finally starting to click. And that's when I really became an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Like I knew I had, this confidence that my idea is real. And then that just kind of blew you up and you were like, let's roll. Like, get me like that unbridled confidence that can take you to places that you never thought were imaginable. Like, when was that point for you?
I think that you might think that I feel that way all the time. There are definitely still days where I'm like, this is the worst decision I've ever made. Why did I do this? Like every entrepreneur, I know folks who are like crazy successful and they're just like, I don't know if this was like the right thing to do. Because it's hard. Being an entrepreneur is hard. Like if you're a small business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, like, you picked a hard path. You picked it because it comes with freedom, because it comes with, this kind of limitless possibility like you're talking about. But sometimes that limitless responsibility is coupled with actual responsibility, actual accountability. Like you're the one that's got to get everybody paid. And that can then bog down the like freedom that you thought you were getting from being an entrepreneur. I still don't know if I feel that way. I understand what you're saying, and I definitely have had a switch where I feel like, why not me? Like, why couldn't I come up with the idea? Like, or why couldn't I come up with a solution to this like major thing? Or why, like, it just, like when you really read, I read a lot of biographies and autobiographies of people and famous people. Obviously, they've had books written about them. And the more that you read about other people in history, at least for me, the more I'm inspired to be like, yeah, of course. Why not me? Why not you? Why not anyone listening? Like every single person has some idea that or some problem that they are uniquely positioned to see. Like there's so many problems in the world. I wish there were way more entrepreneurs. I wish everyone, when they had that idea, didn't say like, oh, well, that's dumb, or like, oh, somebody already thought of it, or like, oh, it'll have to compete, or like, oh, they've got more money than me. Like, no. It's, as you can tell, I love being an entrepreneur. I think everybody should, or everybody who has the inclination to be an entrepreneur should be. People who don't, do not do it.
What about the architecture? Do you miss that? That, because obviously at some point in your life that was important to you.
I So I mentioned this before. I went to Cooper Union. It's a 5-year program. I got a professional degree in architecture. And for pretty much all 5 of the years, I was just like a total shop rat. On the 4th floor of the building, they have a complete wood shop, metal shop, machining shop, plaster. Like you could build anything. I poured bronze sculptures. I made, I got to use the milling machine and made parts for other machines. I like have cut every single material on a table saw, some of them to varying degrees of success. Like I've made a bunch of stuff. I made stuff for my grandfather's house. I made stuff like that I miss. I just miss making things. I don't miss being an architect. I don't miss drafting. I don't miss that, like the actual technical part of being an architect. I think about architecture as much as I thought about architecture in school. And I think about it like Sweeten is kind of like a project that you would do in school, right? Because I'm thinking about it at like a totally different scale. I'm thinking about construction at like, how can I help all these people? How can I help millions of homeowners? How can I make, like, I want to make 1 million general contractors wildly successful. Like, that feels like a school project to me more than like sitting in an architecture office drafting. But to answer your question, I really miss building stuff.
So why do you think that you pursued architecture in the first place?
So I have dyslexia, and that meant that I was not great. I was fine at school, but not great. But I was good at art class and math. And so my guidance counselor said, well, you should look into architecture. And as I've already told you, we were poor growing up, and there was no money for me to go to college. And so Cooper Union was completely free at the time. And they had an architecture department. And I really just went there because it was free.
And that was the path that kind of made the most amount of sense to you at that point.
Yeah, it was what I was good at. That's what I was good at.
Do you think you were good at it because of, I guess, practical reasons, right? If it's math and it's art, but I think that when I think of architects and architecture, people get into that. Typically, it's not to make a lot of money, because it's very difficult. And then I like to think, I guess, more of the romantic side of it, where people get into architecture because they want to kind of create that golden egg, or create something that's beautiful, or leave their stamp on the world. And I think that would be the type of profession or industry where a lot of people get married to that, and they find it hard to step away from that. And it's almost one of those careers and professions where you just devote so much time to it, and trying to perfect those details, and then manage that process with contractors, that you don't necessarily get paid for your time, which is like, to go from that to what you're doing now and become an entrepreneur. It doesn't seem like the most logical transition from one to two. It does make more sense, that was the path that was kind of in front of you, that made sense at that time.
It
But
was the path that made sense. And once I got here, just to again clarify, I loved architecture. I love architecture. Like I was extremely fortunate that even though my motivations, like I wasn't like a kid who like dreamt about being an architect forever, because honestly, I'd never met an architect. Nobody in my neighborhood used an architect. Like, it was not in my ecosystem.
Yeah.
But I totally fell in love with it. I fell in love with New York City. I got to move to New York City, and I got to, you know, art books that I would fawn over in the library. I got to go like see the paintings in real life. I got to go see, the subway stations in Grand Central and those like amazing tiled arches. Like I got like all these things. I was just like, this is incredible. This is incredible. And I do think it informed, or it did. It nurtured a desire in me, as you're saying, Tyler, to make an impact on the world, or to have something that was like something that I created in the world that hopefully is a force for good. And I'm absolutely feel like I'm doing that with Sweeten.
How much do when you started Sweeten, right, and you're looking for investors and you involve venture capitalists, I'm
Dun,
not
dun,
very
dun, dun.
experienced with venture capitalists in my own life. But how much of that are you taking away from your own personal beliefs in that brand, and also try at that point, like, it's they're looking to mitigate and manage risk and make money. So there's a huge drive, and obviously that's the lifeblood of a business, but how much stake do you have in the day-to-day operations and your own personal beliefs in your brand once those people are kind of brought into the situation?
So I think venture is really different, or when I look at venture through my rosiest glasses, venture are finance people who believe in creating money through creation. That's like a fundamentally different idea, because there's like lots of ways to make money. There are lots of easier ways to make money than trying to create something new in the world and then have that provide enough value so that you do all the things that you say make a bunch of money. So I just want to be clear that, like, I think people, and it is true, and certainly the things that you read and the dollar amounts and everything that you hear is also true. But I do think it's a fundamental difference. These aren't even private equity guys or any other type of investment where it really is like you said, like it's returns and it's risk mitigation. The way the venture model works, it's they know 9 are going to fail, but 1 is going to be a rocket ship. And so the expectations are, of course, to push all 10 to be rocket ships, but they know that that's not going to happen. So I just want to, not that I'm like standing up for venture capitalists, because trust me, I'm a Black woman, and Black women get 0.06% of all venture capital per year. So like, I have lots of things to say on the industry and how frustrating it is to be in my position. And yeah, it's very frustrating. But I do think it's an important differentiate or a distinction that they are trying to make money through creation, which makes them a little different.
So, when once they became involved, is it, hey, do whatever you set out to do, carry along that path, or are they kind of structuring things that, hey, we want to see you here at this point, we expect this by this point, or is it just like, hey, this is what, at the end of the day, this is kind of what we expect, and they're not necessarily structuring the way that you're going about this, and you can kind of still just do your thing?
Yeah. So, once you have, significant venture dollars, you're going to have a board, as we do. And it's actually the way that it works is, as a CEO of the company, I make the plan. I say, this is what we're doing. This is where we're going. Well, you present it to the board, and then the board pushes back on it and says, have you thought of this? And what about this? And is this going to, like, what about these people? Or I can make a connection here. So it's not that it should not be a top down, like the way that you're saying it, it kind of feels like they're business operators.
Yeah.
They are not in any operations of your business. They really are just helping you to make the best strategic decisions that you can for the direction of the company.
See, I feel like I would want somebody like that to be able to lean on, because here you are, being raised essentially without money, and then you're going to school to become an architect, and then you have this idea that you're looking to put into fruition. And what's your business background? And you're going to get not handed, but you're going to get investors that are going to be giving you all of this money. I would be like, can somebody now tell me what to do? Like, is this the right decision? Instead of like,
Yeah.
I'm the CEO and in charge. Like, that's a lot of risk to
I tend to I like a vertical learning curve.
until you fall.
Now I have fallen so many times. I have fallen. I mean, I'm not gonna. Your audience will be like horrified if I tell the stories. I have fallen so many times. I mean, we've been in business 10 years, right? We've done thousands of renovations. We're in 10 cities. I have absolutely fucked up along the way. And
I'm
for
just
whatever,
really good at getting up.
I'm just really good at getting up. That's mostly what I've practiced.
Yeah, like I said, I know, John, you deal with investors some. Obviously, it's on a different level. The way that my business is not structured to do so. I have a little bit experience starting with companies who are kind of startups and have people investing in those businesses, but it's always a different experience for each type of investor and how that goes. Um,
And for construction companies, I don't know. I mean, again, I guess this goes back to your question, John, about like, how do you want to grow? What do you want to be? Because I don't know if I would take on investors. Like you can get working capital loans, you can get like lines of credit. I don't know if I would. I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts on taking investors for your companies.
I guess John, if John's building a spec house, at that point, a lot of times contractors aren't funding that project on their own, so they have money guys or girls who are coming in and then putting up the capital for that project,
Got
and
you.
then pulling the profit and the agreed upon profit, and splitting it at that point. But it's, do you go through a bank? Do you go through private investors? What the interest rate is and all of that. So it's
Yeah,
always different. John could obviously speak more to that than I could, but
that makes sense for development projects like that. That makes sense, and you're getting like hard money lenders or something, or
yeah, John.
Yeah, I don't talk about it much because I feel like the land cost is one thing; it's a hard number, and the sale price for the homes are a hard number. So then the person that gets squeezed is me, the GC, and I have not been savvy enough to develop the right incentive based contracts to really, or I haven't been able to corrupt my moral judgment on execution enough to make enough money to make it worth it.
Well,
I think the product is worth it to me, but that's not the purpose behind those deals.
yeah,
and that's the experience that, when I think of a lender, somebody coming in who is financing a project, oftentimes, regardless of what that is, if their only input into this business is money, then they're really looking to mitigate risk and get out as much as they can. And in John's case, you have John who's looking to build something or put out a product that's truly different, and then you have people who are investing who, they say, well, we're going to get the same amount for this whether you do that or don't do that. So why would you do that? Because we can make more money. But obviously, that's John's mark on this world, and that's what he's doing. So he wants to kind of build the spec on that home to be of the level that he wants to be doing work. So there's a difference of opinion there. And then at that point, John's the one who's getting squeezed because he's kind of going out of pocket or taking money out of his potential profit to kind of build or upsell a project, even though he's not getting a return on that.
yeah. No, and I mean, we have a bunch of general contractors in our network that also do development projects. I'm sure there's some best practices around that if you got like a little working group, somebody could tell you how, because people are making money on it, but maybe you're right that they're cutting corners or doing things that you don't want to do from a product perspective. Anyway, venture capitals are different. They're not like just putting money in and expecting a return out. They, as I said, their whole frame of reference is like, how can I bring my network to bear to make this company as big as possible? So this is the rocket ship. Like, what do I have that is like a resource or a competitive advantage that I can bring to this company and with my capital and make it huge?
So so I've been approached by 2 different clients that will say like, hey, what would you do if I gave you $500,000 with your
Okay.
company? And it's like, and I sit there and go, God, that would, the first time I was like, I'll buy an income property. And that was the wrong answer. The second time, it was like, I would try and cut 3 years of growth into 1 year, whether it means getting a home base like an office and grabbing the right bookkeeper or grabbing these certain elements that are needed for growth to be able to withstand it, meaning that you want to keep an eye on the books, you want to keep an eye on certain things. So maybe you would hire people that are overqualified for position because now the number isn't as crucial. I'm not trying to get someone for 40 grand and try and get $40,000 salary, but I'm trying to squeeze them for 70.
Yeah.
So I think that's
that
how
never works. That never, ever, ever works. And I just read this book by the founder of Netflix, Reed Hastings, and he has this idea about talent density. So Netflix was at some point was 300 people. They had to have a big layoff because they weren't doing well. They went down to 80. And he was like, oh my God, how are 80 people ever going to get this done? Oh my God, we're never going to be able to get all this work done. Not only did the 80 people get the work done, but they got it done faster, better. It was fun to work there. Everybody loved like coming to work all of a sudden because they got all of the people out that were hard to work with, needed a bunch of process, needed hard to communicate with,
coasting,
all that stuff. And so I've really internalized this recently. And this goes to your point about like hiring people. You should absolutely, good people are worth the money. Like I wouldn't overpay anybody for anything, but pay them what they're worth. And it's just so worth it. It's so worth it. Like great people will make your life easier. They'll anticipate problems for you. They'll be thinking about solutions. They will not like the thing. And I heard when you said that before, when you were like, oh, I got too many people. I was like, what I heard was like, you probably got too many of the wrong people. Because if you got a bunch of people coming to you with a bunch of problems, you got the wrong people. If people are coming to you with the problems and the solutions, and you feel like you can trust them and they're going to do a great job, and like it should make your life easier, not harder.
Totally. So when you got so VC capital came into the kind of picture.
Yes, I partied like we had it looked like a hip hop video.
Story of my life.
Yeah, it was like for like bottles. You would have thought we would have raised like $100 million. We raised $1 million. We like bottles of vodka and like, oh my God, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. It was really fun, but totally insane.
So, but what else changed? What doors did it open for you as the entrepreneur that wanted to make stuff happen? What levels unlocked for you, like a video game?
Tech. I was able to hire tech people, have them full time, have them developing, our custom software that allows us to build that assembly line, to build the machine that can process, thousands of renovations.
So this wiped out the Google Docs and
wiped out the Google Docs, actually, it's very funny. So I don't think this is like competitive information. Anyway.
So you're still using Google Docs?
No, we're still not using Google Docs, but it's really funny. I drew up this system that was based on a system that I had like kind of figured out in Google Docs. And I was like, can you just automate this and like show it this way? And like, every project will be able to see like exactly where the project is. And I did it 9 years ago, thinking like, well, we'll use this thing for a year and then we'll do something else and blah, blah, blah. We still use that thing because it's the best, simplest system to train new staff on. It's so straightforward that we can train somebody in a day and they know how to do their job. So,
So
yeah,
who did you
we don't
turn
use Google Docs, but we have the tech people. Tech people are expensive. Tech people are expensive, but they, again, worth it.
did who helped you kind of get the infrastructure for this business in place? Obviously hitting the ground running, not necessarily having any experience. It's even like, well, who do I turn to for a tech person? Like, what's my best bet here? Who helped you along that path?
So when I was first starting out, I'm going to date myself a little bit, but whatevs. Meetup was really big. Meetups. Do you guys know these?
Never heard of it. Must be before my time.
Okay.
Just
Well,
kidding.
okay, great. I was like, oh my God, he was really letting me like hang out here.
MySpace?
Yeah, I was on my Friendster page. No, so meetups were big, and there was a big tech meetup in New York City. And 4 nights of the week, I would just go to tech meetups and I would just sit there, and it was mostly dudes. And they, many times, they would say, like, hey, I think the fashion meetup is down the hall or whatever. I'd be like, no, I'm in the right place. And I would just absorb as much as I could, connect with people who didn't seem like, you know, jerks. And that's really like how I started to understand the ecosystem, understand like what motivates tech folks, what motivates product folks, or they're, like product folks weren't thought of as much as a specific job title then, but it's like visiting any foreign land. You have to like understand the ecosystem and the language. And I just did that night after night. I would just like put myself in these like really uncomfortable positions to sit there and listen to them talking about how they're organizing their tech teams, like the CTO meetup that I would go to. It would be CTOs talking about CTO problems and like how they're structuring their teams and how they're organizing their teams. I ultimately was able to connect with a few people from those meetups, and they were the first developers that worked on the site. They just were like, hey, I like what you're doing. I'm super into, like, a couple of them had been architecture students before they went into coding, and they were super into like urban planning. And I was like, yeah, this is like, organizing this like really crazy, massive industry. And so they got excited about it, and I got them to start working on it. And then it was like I think, again, for your audience, I hope that you hear that I really have just taken like the next best available step. Like I
How
just I didn't like get a tech team. Like I didn't get venture money and like hire a tech team. I had to like hustle to get the first guys to build the first website that was the Billboard website. Like then I used Google Docs that then got me venture money that then got me able to hire. I hired like 3 tech guys in the beginning, and they were all guys at that point. We now have women in men, which I'm really excited about.
That's actually what I was going to ask. How long between what you were doing before your corporate job were you kind of getting this off the ground prior to getting that venture capital? Because obviously, life costs money. Life in New York tends to cost a little bit more money, and prior to having money where it's like, I don't have to work right now, I can devote all of
Mhm.
my hours in a day towards building this company. You obviously have to be juggling a job, getting a company off the ground, until that money comes in, where you can say, okay, my job's going bye bye, and now I can devote all my time to this new company.
Yeah. So as I said, I had been working at a corporate company. I worked in their architecture department. So they built retail stores all over the world. I was hired as a traditional architect. So I was drafting vitrines and millwork and, you know, standard standard fixtured packages. And I said to my boss at the time, I was like, hey, I think we need a website to make us more efficient. We've got 25 people in this group. We're doing like 250 stores a year. When the store opens, it's like the end of the project for the architecture team. but it's just the beginning for the rest of the company. And we're doing a terrible job handing off that information. Let me, like, I think I have an idea for a technology solution, intranet solution that'll help just like make this whole process way more efficient. Surprisingly, he said yes. But of course, it was like, yeah, you can do that job as long as you do that job and the job that you have, and you're not going to get a raise. But I was like, great. I didn't care. They paid for me to get certified in information architecture. I built that platform. It was, I had to pitch the COO, get some money for it. I had to get internal stakeholders. I had to like do some maneuvering to get the thing actually built. But once I did, I won the chairman's award from the CEO of the company at the time. And he was like, this is all we want you to do is just make technology solutions that make our architecture and construction group more efficient. So I had like on the ground training inside of a corporation before I jumped to start my own thing. So I did that for almost 4 years. I just built websites and technology solutions to help make our architecture, visual merchandising and construction group more efficient.
Okay, so you did have just by chance you did have some of this background that kind of, I guess, would have created a more seamless progression into this. It wasn't like I have this idea that's kind of out of nowhere that I'm going to make this happen, and now I'm
and you're in the mailroom.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think that the if you're in the mailroom, we can talk about it. I can figure out a way to get you to where you need to be. Like,
there's definitely those stories, but at the same moment, that's the laborer that has this epiphany that
right, it's just going to take you 10 years. I remember this story. Warren Buffett was talking about how like people come up to him and they're like, "Oh my God, Warren Buffett, you're so rich, you're so smart. I want to do exactly what you did, but way faster," because he didn't become a billionaire until he was 56. And it's like, don't you think that if there was a faster way to do it, like Warren Buffett would have figured it out?
No, it's the Amazon era. It's like Prime. If it's not available Prime in 2 days.
But even Jeff Bezos, Jeff Bezos has a long history before Amazon, like where he was. I mean, there is no overnight success. That's not real.
But isn't it amazing that sometimes you'll look at Amazon and then hit the item that you want and it's not available in Prime? You question, should I buy it right now? Because it's like, do I want it if it can't come to me in 2 days? Like 4 years ago, you were like going to the store, they didn't have it. You go to the next store and you drive around and so quickly has our mindset changed. Yeah. And now and then it just keeps creeping where it's like, why can't I get that product? And especially with all these products for us, when these things aren't available and GCs aren't able to look beyond 6 months. Like we're doing projects where we haven't even designed anything. Oh, we haven't finished the design. Maybe we finished appliances. We order them. And then we're going backwards from when those can get delivered to when we should start the project. But there's a lot of GCs that can't do that. And it's like,
lead times is one of the areas that I think that, I mean, maybe there's somebody already working on this that I don't know about, but I haven't seen it. I think that there's like some really cool stuff that should be done around lead time, like aggregating all that data around lead time for materials and then like actually presenting stuff based on lead time, not just on like what you're looking for, right? Because some people are really motivated by time.
I think the biggest niche in this industry that's going to grow is product coordination.
Totally.
Meaning it's project management is more production based, like boots in the ground, stuff happening, details are being absorbed and created. But someone tracking and navigating and coordinating all between production and ordering. Those two things, there's such a disconnect because some days you're hustling and you're pounding out all this production. And your next thing is, I got to go invoice, not I got to go order this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Or check on. There's so many times where I've seen people stumble in my own people where they order windows, but yet they didn't circle back after that week to make sure that they got that whoever accepted that order, did it get inputted into the computer? We all assume that part of the process happened, but life's crazy. Maybe it's still on their desk for a week. And guess what? I need every day. I need every single day on my side, not on their desk. So if it means like we have a company that does our millwork and I love them, small company, but I know that when I walk through with the salesperson, Like, I know the process. Like, he gets it. He writes it up. Then he puts it on the boss's desk. It might sit on the boss's desk for I don't know how many days because no one's chirping.
Yeah, but that's like, in some ways it's music to my ears because there's just so much that technology can help with our industry, right? Construction just has so many different facets that the transparency that technology can bring would just alleviate all of that. Like just a simple system. I mean, I go to the doctor and they check me in on an iPad and it immediately like timestamps that I'm there at this time with this like these things are highly solvable with some technology. So maybe that can be your epiphany. That can be your thing.
It's one of many. It's just I feel like that's when I talk to a lot of people for like mentoring calls and that stuff, that's where they're stumbling. Is that it's just that follow-up where, hey, it got to the boss's desk. I like it's I always go back to Swingers, the movie. It's like, should I call her? Is it 3 days? What's the rule? So it's like knowing what that rule is for each individual thing. Is that like interior trim? I know I met with Cody. I know he did this. Now, 2 days after he's done his thing, I'm going to call the boss and go, yo, is my stuff right next to the computer? Has it been inputted or is it underneath your phone and you lost it? I don't want to call. So my point in all this is that what happens is we call when we expect it, just like Amazon. Like you call when the package didn't get there, but are you tracking in to make sure that you completed that order, or did you hit the send button, or is it just waiting in your drafts? And that's what gets lost with all the confusion that happens on a daily basis is that, did I follow up with someone? That's with production management, and project management is the follow-up. You can delegate all day. It's just that follow-up and that follow through to make sure something gets ordered, that it is that someone's ordering, they're completing someone's order regardless that day. They're staying busy. Are they completing your order is my question.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's especially construction has been very slow to adopt new technology. We know that, right? Like there's still people that are like trying to fax us stuff. like we know this to be true. I think when you think about like people talk about like algorithms or, all an algorithm is a recipe on how to do something. Right. And so everything that you just talked about, that's just like an algorithm. Like, okay, it gets from here. It can take this many days. It needs to follow up. You just write the recipe. And the beautiful thing about technology is that the recipe, once you put it into the computer, it doesn't forget it. There's no like out sick or forgot or forgot the rule, or was it 2 days or 3 days? It's whatever you put in there. That's what you'll get every single time. And so I think that like people get hesitant when they think about technology or they think about algorithms. And certainly there's lots and lots of things to be worried about when it's like facial recognition and all these things. But when you think about processes to make your business more efficient, like you already are using, I can hear what you just described to me was an algorithm. You were like, here's the process. You take it from his desk to his desk. It sits on this desk until it gets this stamp. Once it gets this stamp, it goes to here. Once it gets on this person's desk, then they do this and then it moves. That's an algorithm.
So I just need VC capital. And then
VC
sky's
capital.
the limit, right? And then I'll go from Google Docs to
popping bottles.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I would love, I don't want people to think that I'm saying this without understanding what I'm asking them to do. To raise my Series A round, I spoke to 257 different venture capital firms. So that's not 257 phone calls. That's 257 different companies in which then I had meetings and follow-ups and emails, and another meeting and another pitch and a due diligence and a partner manager. Like it's so much work.
But at a minimum, beyond the work, that's 257 no's. That's 257 shots to your ego, shots to your idea. That this isn't like you had that when you described it in the beginning, like, oh, someone else would have come up with that already, or this is probably isn't going to work. It's going to be so much work. So now you got past that phase, which most don't. Then you stumble onto 257. You know what? No, this isn't a good idea. We're not going to give you money. And then you went through all that. I listened to how it's made, and they always have like Peloton, everyone on, and it's like same thing. It's like I don't know how do you take that much defeat? And I guess that's why raising that $1 million was like 100 million to you because of all the no's. And God bless you for making it through that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I say this knowing how hard it is, but I do think that more people from the industry should be pitching their ideas for solutions, because I think that so many of the tech solutions have come from outside the industry, and they're just like, everybody in the industry could have told you that they're not going to work. Like, we all could have told you that Katera is not going to work. And not because we're naysayers, not because I'm a hater. I'm the biggest tech enthusiast you'll find. But there are certain like realities, on the ground realities, that I just think that we can bring to people that have technology skills and really come up with impactful solutions. Like, really, like, truly help to transform the industry. And I think, so I just encourage, if people are out there and have an idea, to figure out how to get it into a deck, and then get that deck in front of some people and start talking to people about it and get some feedback, and just put one foot in front of the other.
What do you think the biggest hang up is with our industry and, adopting technology?
I think that because our industry is so large, there hasn't been there's a lot of leverage in the scale of the industry. I think that that's part of it. I think construction is truly complicated in the fact that you're dealing with existing conditions often, or site conditions that are unique. It's not like a factory where it's like, you can make it, a completely dust-free environment and then create your iPhone in, like that. That can't happen with construction to that exact degree. I think the other challenge, and I work a little bit on this now, and I've always, obviously, again, as a Black woman, felt that part of the industry's problem is just that there's not enough diversity in the industry. And that means both gender diversity, racial diversity, and leading to diversity of thought, right? I think that either, for varying different reasons, that's been the case. I think that's changing now, and it's exciting. We have so many women general contractors on our platform, which makes me so happy, because, by the way, women make amazing general contractors. And I think that the size that it gave us the leverage to not have to adopt new technology was part of it. And then the lack of diversity was the other part.
Yeah, I mean, if you think, break it down to residential construction, and it's a lot of very small businesses that it costs a lot of money to kind of retrieve this data and then inventory this data and then kind of sort through it and actually make useful information out of it. And
Totally.
a lot of these small companies, just they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the money to do that. I think another thing is, um, a lot of our industry, although a lot of the tasks may be repeatable, I think that there's so many variations in what we do, and every situation is different, that it's hard to kind of systemize what we do, because it's not in a controlled environment. Like you said, we're not in a factory creating the same exact product over and over again. That's what we're looking for. So I think it does make it difficult. And obviously, smaller companies, lower overheads, they don't have the money in place to be able to kind of create these databases and algorithms to make life easier, in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right that the signal versus noise problem, like, there's so much noise in the market, especially for residential renovations. Like, people have heard so many horror stories. All of the homeowners are scared that they're going to hire someone terrible. They've heard all these terrible stories. And so then when they find someone who's like halfway decent, they're like, okay, great, this will be fine. This will be great. I'll just do this is great.
Yeah.
So I do think that that is part of it. I think that the solutions, like I said, I'm really hopeful that there's going to be some really awesome, there's so many cool technologies that are coming for construction. There's like, I saw there's a company that's, taking photos from exactly the same vantage points and then stitching them all together and creating these records so that you can like look at that particular part of a job site. These are for larger construction projects, but that on that floor, that column, you can see it like when it was just concrete, when it got drywalled, when it got painted, when it was a finished material. Like you can like peel back the layers of the photo. They've lined them all up, which I think is super cool. There's a bunch of like drone stuff that's super cool for construction. Obviously, all the stuff with BIM modeling and all the stuff that like AutoCAD has done is great. But your point is well taken. Most of those things don't make their way down to like a small to medium sized contractor working in the field every day, just trying to get his like, tile guy to show up.
Yeah, and I think that, and we've had this conversation before, that that's one of the issues with our industry and residential construction, that it's primarily composed of so many small, 1, 2, 3 man and woman operations, that it's, having a 40, 50, 60, 100 person residential construction company is few and far between in our
Yep.
country.
Yep.
So it
Why do you think that is though? Because I've encouraged people to consolidate. I've encouraged people to try to get big and like really blow it out with us. And people don't want to do it. Why do you think that is?
I think that a lot of it is the cost that people are willing to pay for a job, and I think that, until that, there's a big difference from going from, a 2 man, 3 man company, 10 man, then when you get up to like 50, 60, and the at that point you just need so much of a volume of work to come in to be able to pay the employees to keep that company running, that I
But
think that.
let's say you're partnering with a sweet company like Sweeten, and I can guarantee you have all the volume you want. I still don't see people. I don't see a lot of GCs jumping at that. I think that general contractors tend to be, you know, like I said, really value that freedom and maybe not want to, because right, we've got thousands of GCs on our platform at this point.
Yeah.
I always thought it was like, can 10 of you just like all merge together? Let's like make one super firm that I can just give all the work to.
I I
Not
th
all the
I
work. I mean,
think
it's not exactly, but you know what I mean? Like give a lot of work to.
I think it comes back to, what kind of makes my palm sweat with your company. It's just the exposure that you face at that point. And a lot of times, the more sales you have, the more mistakes you have, the more issues you have, the higher your overhead is. And at the end of the day, I believe that you can make comparable money with a lot less headaches, remaining small and not kind of bearing that overhead and then being forced to feed this machine. And I think it's really hard to structure a residential company, that does various projects to various degrees, to create systems that are kind of that work across the board for everything that you do. I think that it kind of gets convoluted at that point, and you end up burning a lot of money and a lot of overhead and cash flow to keep things afloat. And it's like, well, why would I do 2 times the amount of work when I can do half that amount and make about the same money and not have the pressure, the stress, and
Yeah.
the exposure and the liability at that point.
I think I hear you. I still think it's something about like an independent spirit or something else, because we could everything that you're talking about with the right business structure, with the right operational organization, with the right we could fix all of that stuff. I don't know.
You can, but
I
I also think that customers, for the majority of our market within this country, they are going to hire whoever's the least amount of money. So a lot of times, to kind of create these businesses, it costs a lot of money, and it's not until you get these business up and running and create the efficiencies that they can make money, and you're footing the cost of an overhead, where most people are like, I'd rather just pay
Yeah.
less
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. Yeah. It just always struck me like why someone didn't make like the Pet Boys of construction.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
I think that honestly, I just think there's not enough repeatable tasks in our industry unless you're just doing
Right.
like
There's no
bath
oil change.
fitters, right? Like you're just
Yeah.
doing bath fitters or you're
Yeah.
refacing kitchen cabinets or
California
yeah,
closet. Yeah.
it's
Shade
really
store.
hard to do.
Yeah.
And
And I
you know,
think
there's so many personalities and so many every single job, if it's the same exact job that you know you're building the same house 100 miles away, you're gonna face an infinite amount of you know differences between that project, whether it's getting materials there, the soil, the environment, you know, the way the wind like everything's different
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
matter what. And I think that you know that it's really hard to kind of manage that and create a one size fits all.
Yeah.
well, the
Yeah.
other
I think
part of
you're
it
right.
is you're dealing with people. Like Tyler just described all these different elements that are almost controllable. That you can go do a soil test, you can see this stuff, and those are all major glitches with what we do. Like I have a small creek running through an excavation right now that we have. I'm getting
Totally.
emails on, hey, we're gonna stop the pump, see how high the water level goes for static pressure. It's like that was a block away from a job we've already done, and it's totally different. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think my point was is that going back to the dating scenario, we've all had relationships that have been great, and I haven't had a huge dating pool, and I found enough bad ones to be like, wow, the numbers are just are they in my favor? So like if I'm going to be a GC, I'm going to do 5 jobs a year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that I have 5 amazing clients.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge for me. And that if I
Mm-hmm.
have one bad one that made it through the process, then I have to work extra hard to kind of make them happy through this
Yeah.
process. That's the biggest element. Then behind all that, there's I don't know, 8,000 or 80,000 tasks that have to happen by other people that I have to be dependable. I mean, Tyler has an amazing ability to have control over his products because he almost does everything owner operated.
Mm-hmm.
And he's limited his exposure to having to depend on other people. But as you take on more responsibilities, like you're saying, like the Pep Boys, then you have to then delegate a lot of that responsibility off. And
Yeah.
for us, it's like anyone. How far do you want to expand that risk tolerance? Like if Nick was on here, his sky is the limit. Literally,
Yeah.
it's like to
Yeah.
the
I think
moon.
I think I have a much higher risk tolerance than both both of
Well, I
you.
think
Oh
it's
yeah,
also
I
depends on
don't
when you
have
get
any.
burned.
But also,
Yeah,
even you know, you're doing these small repeatable tasks where it's like Burger King, fast food, and it's you know the liability that you have for a
the
ten
risk.
dollar meal
Yeah.
versus you know you're going out and say
Our
you're having
our
a
average order
wedding.
value is $85,000. Like, they're real projects. They're big projects.
Yeah, it's tough, but
And that's our average. So
every,
we've got projects way bigger than that.
every customer is different. I don't know. I think that it takes money to scale things, and I think that you know for most construction companies there's really especially residential there's a cap as to what people are willing to pay you, and a lot of times it's not enough money to live, so people start their own company because that's the only way that they're going to be able to make more money, and that's just the way that things are structured, or you know they can't afford benefits, so
Mm,
they get tax write-offs and everything else, and I don't think that people aren't willing to pay enough for our services that you know you can have a mid-sized company and pay everyone really well and still support a lifestyle that you want very easily. It's a lot of
yeah.
work to do so. It's almost simpler to just stay small and you know reduce your overhead and be as efficient as possible.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's a tough industry.
Well, hopefully we're doing our part to help set a realistic expectation around price because we do think of it as one of the core ways in which we attract our homeowners is really showing that we have value alignment. And it's hard to say, oh, I shop at Whole Foods and I only drink fair trade coffee and I compost and recycle and do everything, but then I want to like hire a day laborer from a Home Depot to come and like renovate my bathroom that is going to get paid like what I know is a third the price of what a licensed general contractor would do. Like, how does that square with your values? Right? Because what we're trying to do is make it so that people, as I said, I see general contracting as a path, a really great tool for social mobility and getting people, like to be able to pay their mortgage and send their kids to college and have like the American dream. And you can only do that if people respect and appreciate like what it costs to run that business, because in every other aspect of their life, folks are wanting to do the right thing by other people, and construction shouldn't be any different.
Yeah, it's definitely it's an industry issue as well, where a lot of times referrals that are going around are that they're so inexpensive, and it's not necessarily about the quality of the work or how quickly they got done. A lot of times it's just like, well, hey, like this person was this much less, and the focus and the emphasis isn't necessarily put on the warranty and the longevity and the materials used and everything. It's at least for
Yeah,
the bulk of the market.
those those same folks, this is, I guess, we're saying the same thing. Like, yes, you found somebody who's a third the price or whatever, super cheap. Where do you think that cost savings is coming from? The materials that you want are the materials that you want. So they're probably, maybe they have a really cheap place to get materials, but it's coming out of the labor. And when you read these stories about here in New York City, about guys like sleeping, 15 in a one bedroom out by the airport doing construction jobs, like how does that square with your values when you're drinking free trade coffee? Like, tell me.
I don't agree with it at all, and I obviously that's because I'm in the industry. But it
Yeah,
doesn't.
so tell them that. Tell them like that's not you can't do that. You can't hire the cheap
But
guy that is cheap because he's squeezing labor.
But the
you're
problem is they
yeah,
think that that's like the same thing that, if nobody's telling them that, hey, that's different or that's actually not nice or that's only going to last so long. A lot of times they don't know the difference between that and they just think, that they're saving a
that's
buck,
steel.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, we are on a mission to change that. Whenever I can, I point that out to people.
I
Whenever
mean,
I can.
on the flip side, there is HGTV and these other shows that
Ugh.
are going on, and they're showing these flips of a kitchen for 30 grand in 3 weeks. And I sit there screaming at the screen going, my appliance package is like
Yeah.
39,000. And like just straight up, like beat it in, faced frame, cabinetry, and the countertop allowance is gonna be 15 to 20K. Like none of this makes sense, but yet it's out there, and there's a billion shows now that they're streaming. So it's
How,
like
how do you think net is HGTV good or bad for the industry? I'm on the fence.
I know it's brought a nice spotlight to our industry for people and exposure. Like you got exposed to architecture because a guidance counselor said, "Hey, this would probably be a good avenue for you." If they had said you're going to go into construction management, you would have gone down that aisle as well. So for us, I get the pricing thing frustrates me to all end because the problem is there's not a show that has reality attached to it. You get me? It's on a scripted level where I mean I've been involved with a lot of those things, and unless you conform to this thing, it's not going to happen. It's like can we have one show that's shows the reality of what we do, the idiosyncrasies, the details, the kind of ambiance behind the scenes and in between all the gray areas, and not just this content frenzy that like, oh, I don't really care. Like people, you could tell them $15,000, and most of the people watching these shows wouldn't say boo. They'd be like, I want that. Like Chip and Joanne, they show their additions. They never tell you how much all the decor is that they put in that really makes that room feel cozy, that they probably pull out of there when they're done. This is what happens. It's all smoke and mirrors. So for us to think that this industry and the people that we're hiring, that they're not in a fantasy, if someone could tell you, hey, we can give you that bathroom that you were like, we're probably on the fence. We probably won't be able to afford it.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to do it for 30 grand. And I actually have money left over. People will say yes every single time.
Yeah, we try not to sugarcoat pricing or timelines. Like when people post their project, we have a budget calculator that gives them what we think will be the cost for that project. Sometimes it's a little high,
I saw the range. Mine
which
came in the middle.
which we're working on. But we really try to give people a realistic price expectation. And as I said, if they say like, no, I know better, I can do this kitchen for $10,000, it never sees the light of day. As far as like one of our general contractors are not going to be matched to that. Like, we're not going to match you to a $10,000 kitchen. That's not possible. Not possible.
I guess it's just the overall, like, we have to reset expectations for a lot of people.
That's right.
You know, when they see a photo and they want this design, and not even the expectation of money, it's just the process. Like, hey, if you know, like, so many times people call me and they go, hey, I want to do this. And I'm like, okay, hold up. You're not even starting the process off right. I know this is what you think it is because you probably watched it somewhere, heard a story, but you need to go finalize a design. The design is the contract for someone to then take the next step. Like Tyler's point, you're eliminating the assumptions, and the assumptions are what's going to eat you alive on budget and time when you get deeper into the details. Well, no, I thought it was this. Well, the photo that we're using off of House, shows this. So it's really tough to reset those, or honestly think you have. I feel like as I've grown in this industry from like 24 years, who I am today, setting expectations in the beginning, I never would have done year 5. I would have no idea to be like, no, I would have gone home and sketched out that bathroom for that client. Not gotten paid for it, did it because I was trying to grow in the industry. And at a certain point, you got to pull the plug and realize that I'm doing someone else's job. And it's not part of the a la carte, in air quotes, that you get all of it.
Exactly. And as much like, and we have a really great relationship with our general contractors. And anytime that we are setting a wrong expectation, they call us on it. They'll say like, whatever the content is or something in the product, they'll tell us like, that's not a realistic expectation, because what we're trying to do is get people's expectations aligned.
Yeah. And that's, if you were to talk about anything beyond the craft and all that stuff, that is the meat and potatoes of this business.
100%.
That's where everything goes wrong. That's where everything goes sideways, is that, like, I had a guy, and I was on a client today, and we let one of our PMs go. And she's like, she told me today, she goes, all I heard was yes. Yes. Regardless if it was going to happen or not. And she's like, after 4 months of hearing that, I don't know what to believe. And she's absolutely right. And then like and then we have another job where we're doing a little bit of punch list that was left open. And one of my guys goes there and goes, man, she's at like 11. And he's walking into the situation going, she's at 11. I go, that's not her fault. It's because the expectation that was set for the last 4 months wasn't good. So now we need to reassess and get her back down to level 2.
The other thing that I really want to encourage everyone, whatever part of the industry that you're in, if you're a small business owner and doing all the things that we're talking about, one of the misses that we see over and over again, and we really drill it into our firms, set communication expectations. Yeah. Get them really clear, because we've had people, I'll give you an example. So this general contractor, he was texting the owner all day long, pictures and this, what do you think about this? I'm going to do this, like up to the minute texts of everything that's going on. She hated it. It drove her crazy. It drove her like really crazy. Another client loves it because they're like, oh, he kept me so informed. It was so great. We were on text all day and I always felt like I was connected to the project. That's just a misalignment of expectations. So put that out front. Be like, I'm going to text you every day when I'm on the job, and that's the way that I like to work. Or we're going to have a weekly site meeting, and we're going to go through everything in the weekly site meeting. Or I'm going to email you once a week with a site report, and it's going to have all these details in it. You can expect it every day, Friday at 2, and this is what it's going to be inside of it. Just set the communication expectations clearly and early, and you can save yourself so many headaches. Most of the post-award support issues we have are about communication misalignments, not about technical problems, not about something's wrong, late, misordered, whatever. It's that somebody didn't communicate clearly something that was supposed to happen, or they expected something to happen that wasn't really, again, communicated clearly. And that's how we get off the track. So extremely clear and communicated early. how are you going to communicate together? How are you going to talk to each other through this project?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, there's not much more that can make or break a product, compared to expectations and communication. So I think if you're misaligned with them, it doesn't matter if you're on budget, if you're on schedule, if you knock the project out of the park. If your communication's not there and that level of expectation wasn't discussed, it can still be a complete failure.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the other thing that we think about a lot is just the level of customer service that you can provide, and being really honest about that up front, and saying, okay, I'm a small shop. I'm gonna maybe not be able to give you an itemized accounts of every single nail that I bought for the project, but here's what I am going to be able to do. I'm going to be able to actually be on job site once a week, and I'm going to be your project manager because I'm a small shop. Or vice versa. If you can give people down to the nail, like every line item thing that went into this project, obviously you want to hype that as well. But just like, again, we see people expecting a level of customer service that was never articulated by the general contractor. We see that disconnect often.
Yeah, and every company is different. Every company is structured differently, and they have their strong suits. And I know for me, um, I'm not in the office handling paperwork every single day. I'm not sitting at a computer returning emails. And there's contractors and builders that's one of their main things to do every day. And I just have to be straightforward with my customers and say, hey, most days I'm on the job. I get to emails 1 or 2 days a week. And if you don't hear from me, that's fine. I'll get back around. If that's an issue, maybe you should find somebody who has somebody basically on the books to
Yep.
handle that communication. But that's just not the way that my business is structured.
Yep.
You hire me for reasons aside from that. If that's a big primary concern for you, then find a contractor that's really good at that. That's not my strong suit, and I know that. So I'm never going to, when somebody's like, "Hey, following up, did you get my email?" And it's just like, "Yeah, I only get in the office 1 or 2 days a week." So if that's not good for you and you want more communication than that, I'm setting myself up for failure if I lock into that relationship and that's the expectation they have, because it's never going to happen for me.
I'm on the other side. Is that entirely? This is partially your fault. Is that I really want it to be, if I want to be a boutique small firm, I don't want my contract. I don't want the expectations of like communication. Like you said, like maybe I text somebody, maybe I don't want to set this kind of, you get on my highway when I know that not every single client and product's gonna be the same. So I want to feel out that client a little bit and understand who they are. Maybe they are all about text. Like I've had clients to go, hey, I really want to have everything in a Google Doc. We do the Google Doc, and then we can see that they don't open it. So maybe I need to adjust, not go, all right, hey, are you gonna get on? You gonna get on board with the system or what? Like I don't want it to be like that, because then I have this crazy kind of plus minus that goes on my head, is that if I do that, then they're gonna do that to me at some point in the project. Like, it's just this kind of game that I play where, like, you know what? Maybe they want to get text updates, and then we'll communicate, and maybe we'll do every other week meeting. Maybe we'll do all of it. It depends on what they need. And we're going to feel that out over the next month, because it's going to be 10 months.
I mean, again, where I've seen it work the best is where during contract negotiation, you just have, as part of your contract, like just a really clear expectation setting. And it doesn't, you don't have to force people into your system, but you both just need to agree on a system. That's all.
Yeah, but sometimes I guess what I'm trying to, and I agree with you. I think what I'm trying to drive at is that some people are doing this for the first time, and most people at the level of what we do may only do it once. So what I find, and everyone is all about jumping on the pre-construction train, is that they're going along for the ride until they don't know that they don't want to be on the train anymore. and then they feel like they've already committed to this. So then there's like, we as professionals have to gauge and see it. Like, you can see it in kids, like when a kid's scared and what's going on, like, no, this is what we want to do. We want to go to the haunted house, and they're scared out of their mind, but they'll go along with you and then be traumatized. So we have to look in their eyes and go, maybe we should just bail on this for the next 2 years until they're old.
I'm imagining you looking into your client's eyes and being like, oh no, I've dragged you into the haunted house.
100%. It's because, then they realize that maybe we should have, and whose job is it to change the scenario? Not the client's. If it happens to be the client, then we've gone into the haunted house and we've already gotten to the point of no return. So it's our job as the client liaison and the builder and contractor is to see that, hey, I need to change something up. Like that meeting I said about the Chevron. You know what? I think I know them well enough that they could change their mind. So that meeting isn't for them.
Yeah.
It's more for me and my subs, but it has to happen, not just go down that road. So now I'm on their road. And then I have to manipulate to what they want. And so I think in our industry in general, yes, it needs to have more tech, but I think we need to have more of a pulse on our clients, that just because it's your process doesn't mean it's their process. And if we have to take certain things.
That's a great point. That's a very good point. And maybe I'll add that to my list of things that I think the industry could really benefit from is, in technology, everything that we do is like user-facing design. Like, how do we make it intuitive? How do we respond to the data of how people are actually using it? Not like how we want them to use it, but like how are they actually using it? How do we have to change? Like, we're constantly testing everything to make sure that our site is as easy to use as possible. And that type of iterative process around the customer's experience is definitely missing in construction.
Well, you know how many GCs I've met and people I've met that their go-to answer is, I've been doing it for 20 years like that.
Yeah.
And you've been doing it wrong for 20 years. Like I got lucky when I was younger that I had a boss that was 60 something years old and he wasn't set in his ways. He showed me, he's like, go give it a shot. Like, he was a guy, no nail guns, nail everything by hand. I put my dues in. Then I was like, hey, if I buy a nail gun, am I allowed to use it? He's like, give it a shot. Now that you know the fundamentals, now you can start using it. And he would let me do that. And it would evolve his company, but also I was just chasing that fever of like, I see it on fine home building done a different way. Can I give this a shot? And he would make me do the hard work first. Then if I wanted to extend, do the expense. Yeah. You can create that platform. You got to do all the legwork and do it for free. Same thing. I'd have to go buy the gun, do it. And then maybe we would change the process of the company. But I was lucky enough to do that. And I think that's how I still think about this industry, is that I don't want to be the guy that says this is how I've been doing it for 20 years and not realize that I missed the right when I was, on cruise control.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to our conversation before about like growing. To me, that is all, again, I think my definition of growing is constantly learning and evolving and making. I always believe in constant improvement. I always believe something can be better. And like, that's to me what I mean. Like, I just don't ever want to feel that stagnant feeling of like, I've been doing it for 20 years. This is good enough. Like, it's fine. Like, I don't believe in like fixing things that are not broken. But if something's like not working, or people are giving you feedback that like, hey, this could be better.
But here's the thing in our industry, there's so many people not asking for feedback. So they don't know it's not broken. You get me? It's like they're just doing it and they're like, hey, project works, sink works, toilet works, it flushes. I flushed it 3 times. That means it's a sex. We've all been there. The first one never leaks. It's the third one. That's some bitch. That third one on a Friday.
It's always on a Friday. The same thing is in technology, by the way. If you want to guarantee your site is going to like break in some way, try to deploy some code on a Friday. I don't know what it is.
So what's as we're kind of wrapping things up, what's next for you and for Sweeten? You have anything, big things coming up?
Yeah, we're working on some stuff. related to bringing more diversity into construction, which we're super excited about. That's going to be a really great project, hopefully has a big impact. And then just continuing what we're doing, just trying to make the process of renovating as smooth as possible for both sides. And every day we just try to do better and get better and listen to our general contractors and listen to our homeowners and use technology to help solve some of these challenges.
And with what you're looking to do as far as bringing diversity into construction, is that like something that you have a date that you're looking to release something, or like
So
when?
we don't have, it'll be early next year. I don't have a official date. I think it'll maybe like Q1 of next year. So maybe we can come back and talk about it. We're super excited about it.
Yeah, and I think that's important because obviously it's a predominantly male driven, probably white industry, as is. So I think that any diversity that we can get is always good for business, for customers. That's something that definitely needs to be done and is not spoken or talked about enough.
Yeah, we have a program called SAW, which is already launched, which is like the pilot project for this bigger project. And it's Sweeten accelerates women. And the industry standard is like 3% of women in construction, or 3% of the construction population is women. And, it was easy for us to beat that, but we want to get to 50-50, and obviously bring as much racial diversity as well. So we've got some big plans on that front.
That's awesome.
I like the logo. That's dope.
Thanks.
Well, I know that we've taken a bunch of your time. You're in New York, you said?
I'm in New York.
All right, so it's not too late. But
No.
It's not too late.
no, we
Dinner time. I can hear my dog outside the door scratching at the door for dinner.
yeah, we appreciate your time, and obviously, looking to do what you can do to better the industry and make it good for you. At the end of the day, everyone's in this business to make a living, to hopefully make things better and continue to do so. So hopefully, with what you guys are looking to do, you can kind of stand by that and keep your principles, morals, and stick to why you started this in the first place, and continue to move forward with that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun, and you guys are great. It's so nice to like talk shop with folks who know it from the ground up, and really like, if I could only talk to general contractors or people in the industry, that would be the best. I sometimes have to talk to regular press, other stuff, and I'm trying to explain to them like, no, it works like this, and like that would never work, and those guys don't hire those guys. These guys hire those guys.
Yeah.
So it's been really fun.
I feel like there's a Sweeten podcast on the horizon, so then you can talk to nothing but GCs.
Oh, I like this idea.
That might be your move.
You are a fountain of ideas.
Told you. I won't make a dime off it, but I'll give you an idea.
Well, if we end up doing that, I'll come back and chat with you guys, because you guys have obviously done a great job with your podcast.
It's been fun. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks a lot. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, nice chatting with you guys.
All right,
it's a pleasure.
As always, if you guys can hop on iTunes, leave us a review. That definitely bumps us up in the rankings and kind of keeps us prominent and prevalent. So tell your mom, tell your dad, tell all your friends, your coworkers to hop on and check out the podcast and leave us a review. You can also, any sort of feedback that you're looking to give us that we can really dig into or kind of shape this podcast, or the survey, you can head to our Survey Monkey, which is on our Instagram page, right, John?
Yes, correct. It's on the
Modern Craftsman Instagram. But yeah, definitely reviews are super helpful for us. Takes 2 seconds to hop on there. If you listen, do it right now. Hop on while we're talking about this and do it. Pull over if you're driving, but it helps us out a ton, and we appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the conversation today with Jean. That was interesting. I liked kind of digging into the technological side of things and how she's involved with that, more so than just talking about the business and what they're doing. Even thinking of creating algorithms for what they're doing with the company is interesting. Obviously,
it made me think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not of the scale to implement anything like that, but if it works for other industries, I don't see why that wouldn't work for us. Obviously, there are a lot of companies out there who do similar things, but it's another one to keep an eye out for.
But
Um,
I like the fact that they hold on to it,
yeah, it's not
meaning
just
that they
handing it over.
yeah, they kinda have an incentive to make sure that it's a success, and they check in, which is unlike most. It's not just a lead generator. It's more of they're into it for the success of the project or build.
Yeah, I think they said that they get paid based on landing that job and the success of the job. Obviously, I'm not of this scale and not looking to grow. That I want a volume of leads coming to me, and I have a very specific customer base. But I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that find great use out of companies like that. But it was a good conversation, interesting. Um, as always, this podcast, which is 189, kind of crazy to think we're approaching
Wow.
200. This podcast is brought to you by Duration Molding and Millwork. Um, that's the beginning. All right. So when it comes to high quality beveled siding, look no further than Duration. In addition to 6 popular standard profiles, Duration can provide virtually any profile with either a smooth face or a wood grain face. No other material out there provides you 16-foot lengths, no clearance restrictions or gapping requirements, 70% recycled content, and a look that's so authentic it's regularly used in historically sensitive installations. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com. We also have another sponsor, which is Reno Run. John, you use Reno Run. I think Nick uses Reno Run.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I made the comment that it's like Uber Eats for construction material. Um, if we need small, big, whatever, like we're underpinning a foundation, needed some 6x6s PT. Instead of, obviously ordering it and take 3 days from our lumber yard, if I want it the next day or even same day, just shoot it through the text or through the app, and boom, there it is. So no sending my guys out for an hour-long drive to Home Depot, walking Home Depot, you know, buying M&Ms and waters, and they can shoot back in an hour. I just saved 3-hour time, and the stock's still there.
yeah, and
It's a
you
no-brainer.
still have somebody on site.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So check them out if you haven't. Let me look up what they're on Instagram. Let's see what their handle is. I should be more
I think it's run and run.
Reno Run.
Yeah.
I'm on my personal page. Let's check it out. But check out where they are as far as cities. I know that they're looking to expand right now. Montreal, Toronto, Boston,
Run
Chicago.
or run app.
We have Reno
APP.
Run app app. Check them out. It says Montreal, Toronto, Boston, Chicago. I know that they're looking to expand. So if you're in those areas, it might be a good option for you. So thanks again, guys and girls. Make sure you hop on and leave us a review, and we will catch you next week.